Being an astute reader and a devout fan of a certain Brit by the name of Eric Blair, that would be George Orwell in everyone else's parlance, it always bothers me a little bit when members of the left seem to think that they have a monopoly on the term Orwellian. They love to paint conservatives in that light where everything is pushing towards the dystopian Big Brother future. Reminds me of a biblical passage where you can point out the splinter in someone's eye while ignoring the log poking out of your own. They seem to forget that one of the biggest linchpins for George Orwell was the use of language to manipulate. They have become masters of the art. You cannot take that away from them on any level. And they ignore the prescience of a lot of his quotes, like this one, and how it affects them. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. The same crowd that refers to Truth Social as Orwellian because Darth Cheeto is at the head of it and is, shall we say, a bit of a fast and loose player with the truth on his own accord, full disclosure, these same people will expect you to reject the evidence of your own eyes and ears, and it is their final, most essential command. They will expect you to ignore the fact of the overwhelming evidence of the criminal corruption of the Biden family. They will expect you to ignore every single thing that the first crackhead has to do with his father, the evidence coming out about Joe's knowledge of the business dealings and intimate acquaintances with all of the people with whom Hunter was connected. They will expect you to ignore greeting a Saudi ambassador with a fist bump. They will expect you to ignore the rising gas prices, the rising inflation, and the fact that our cadaver in chief just got snubbed in Saudi Arabia. They will try to spin that into a win. They expect you to ignore the evidence of your own eyes and ears when you look at this coked up clown shoe running the nation of Ukraine and how just this week he turned loose a man connected with the neo Nazi Tornado Battalion, guilty of war crimes and atrocities against ethnic Russians in the Donbass region, serving a 10-year sentence for child rape, and how we continue to give billions and billions of dollars to the same Ukraine that made the first crackhead a member of the board of Burisma. They'll expect you to ignore the evidence that, well, Papa Joe was aware of that the whole time. They'll expect you to ignore the fact that the cadaver on the right here continues to lecture us on the importance of human life and stopping gun violence while ignoring the deaths of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry, State Department Representative Jaime Zapata, both killed by Mexican cartels who achieved their possession of the guns responsible for both of these murders through Operation Gunwalker. That's right, Obama's DOJ, Obama's Attorney General Eric Holder. They sponsored that program to hang Mexican gun violence on American gun owners. And what it resulted in was the death of two noble federal agents. They will expect you to forget that even Brother Malcolm For all my black brothers and sisters out there, even Brother Malcolm stepped up and said that the true enemy of the black race is not the white conservative, but the white liberal. Why? Because the white conservative is what he is and wears it on his sleeve. The white liberal will try to act as if he were an ally, the whole time undermining them within. They will expect you to ignore the evidence of the evolution of the left over the past 10 years, as depicted here in this graphic. They were the party who were anti-corporate until corporations got woke. They were the party that were anti-war until it's a just war with our side in charge in Ukraine. They will expect you to defy authority until authority tells you to wear a mask and take a jab. They expect us to ignore all of that. And further, they expect us to ignore the actual vital criminal statistics that they themselves generate through the FBI Uniform Crime Report, trying to convince us that white men with guns are the world's biggest terrorists, while the actual numbers reflect something different. Yes, they will tell you that they have the moral high ground. Yes, they will tell you that we are the enemy. Yes, they will expect you to ignore the evidence of your own eyes and ears and subscribe to their devout secular religion of woke leftism. I'm going to hang with my boy Anselmo. All the money in the fucking world couldn't buy me a second of trust or 1 ounce of faith in anything you're about. Fuck you all. Because unlike everyone else, I refuse to ignore the evidence of my own eyes and ears. And my own eyes and ears are telling me that we are in a fucked up situation, and nothing short of knuckles up is going to get us out. So your own eyes and ears better be asking you if you're ready to rise to the challenge. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors. And I cannot stress this enough, certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to choke you with a big, throbbing, turgid dose of truth cock. Boys and girls, welcome back. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon. Oops. All that dramatic build-up for a little production faux pas. One of these days, it's going to get a little more seamless. In the meantime, in between time, let's see who's on board. Everybody in for the drum roll. Coming out hard charging, man. Hey, I want you guys right now, you're listening, speaking of like production, shifting around. Before I do the roll call, do me a favor, guys. Let me know how the sound quality is this week and last week compared to like previous. Let me know how the sound quality is coming out, because I have switched up microphones here, trying to get the sound balance a little bit better. So let me know if that's actually working, or if I need to go back to that dedicated microphone on the other side here. Because currently I'm using the microphone coming straight off the webcam instead of the separate one, and I'm just trying to get everything ironed out. So I need some live feedback. And while we're looking for that, let's go ahead and get that roll call out of the way, boys and girls. Ah, yes, the original Sinner Sister herself, Miss Emmy, on board early. Brother Dennis, OG Reverend Ranger, Prophet of Doom, Joel Allen Jackson, Hondo Wade checking in early. My beloved Oksana, Sergey loves you too, because Russia. We got to get busy, Mama. We got about a dozen war babies we got to crank out for the apocalypse here, and I think both of our biological clocks are ticking. I don't want to make it awkward or anything. You know, I got test tubes, I got syringes. We can work this out. Now, here is a woman for sure who I have no problem with actual fluid exchanges with. Oh, yes, my beloved wife, Miss Charlie, man. My number one fan, my number one supporter. That is my sweetheart above sweetheart. She is my world. She is my light. She drops in from time to time just to say hi, wish me a good sermon. You guys know her. You love her. She's universally adorable. What can I say? Flu and flame. What a horrible time to sign on to Hunter's jockstrap. Now I have to gouge my eyes out. Hey, look, man, a little bit of bleach A little bit of bleach. Dilute that shit though, man. It does burn. Brother Neil Ross, my official quote historian, good friend, supporter of myself, supporter of the program. You can check out his blog on zombieslayer.com. Awesome fucking writer, man. Still got his book on my shelf. You need to get yourself a copy of that. And it is in the works, boys and girls. The Quotable Bard, Volume 1, coming down the pike very, very soon, courtesy of my official quote historian, Mr. Neil Ross. G Dub on the road, but listing made a load to Maryland of all places. Tell the cadaver in chief I said hi, because you know he's taking the weekend off up there. GW Bowles outlaw trucker out on the road preaching that gospel. The Sultan of sarcasm, and just yesterday the birthday boy, Mr. Joey Nunn. Good to have you on board, brother Joey. You're awesome, man, and I'm so glad that on my way from Nebraska down to Texas, I got a chance to meet you in real life. Still got that cane, man. That cane is a weapon, son. One of these days, I got to do a review on the channel for that because that was awesome. Got Thomas Hollybee on board, brother Brett Bennett, who I got to hang out with recently over in PDX. The smoldering ruins of a once great city. And speaking of smoldering ruins of a once great city, the bumper music, as always, from the band Red Desert, from the smoldering embers of the once great city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the track is Older No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others, man. We'll see how it pans out this time around. Anyway, Brother David McConnell jumping in. Cool. Good to see all the usual suspects coming out early. We got stuff to cover, man. It hasn't been a super heavy week. We're going to take things a little personal this week, towards the end especially. And Emmy, I'm glad that you popped that up on board because I was about to give a shout out for that event and get everything situated on that front. Let me go ahead and fade the bumper music out, man. We'll go ahead and jump into this thing. Once again, name of the band is Red Desert. Nice little gut stomping doom / stoner band. I've been on a doom rock kick lately. Just there's a whole lot of really outstanding doom out there. And again, I'm not going to be like a set tripping, genre ball busting kind of. Well, technically it's not doom, it's like stoner, but it's more like desert rock, bro, and like kind of like space stoner doom, as opposed to like funeral doom. Dude, come on, fuck off. It's doom. I'm digging it. It's some gut stomping rock and roll, and it's fucking cool. So anyway, the original Sinner Sister herself has put together an event, and I'm going to pull up the page here so I can give you the exact fucking details. Samuel Matthews Park in Tomball, Texas. That is going to be the location. We are doing a Reverend's Ranger Sinner Sister potluck and get together. Now that is Saturday, September the 17th. That is when that is coming up. I will be emceeing a show in Spokane on September the 16th, and I am trying to juggle things to where I'm going to be able to make just a long fucking weekend out of it. A lot will have to do with how I'm recovering from the surgery. A lot will have to do with my work obligations at that point. But I'm gonna make a hero's effort to get my ass down there. But she has put this thing together because Emmy is wonderful and she loves me and she has been a good friend and supporter since going all the way back to 1995. Yeah, man. Like I said, OG Sinner Sister, Miss Emmy, but she has put this thing together. Again, this is going to be at Samuel Matthews Park in Tomball, Texas, for all of my H-Town guys down there, or anybody who happens to be in the Houston area. And we'll give updates, like from week to week as we get a little bit closer. But it's just going to be, like a little potluck and get together, a little meet and greet for some of these, for some of my folks. A lot of most of my Houston folks, in fact, I have been friends with, in real life for some time. But sometimes, sometimes there will be new faces, and sometimes some of the old faces you get separated from over time, and it's folks that you might have known but you haven't seen in like 5 or 10 years. Now, some people who I haven't seen in 5 or 10 years, there's a reason I haven't seen them in 5 or 10 years. In fact, one in particular that I haven't seen in about 2 years. No, actually, I haven't seen this guy since I haven't seen this guy since 2013. But he's pulling some psycho stalker shit on me right now. Just a weird little bit of background noise. You know, you're on the right track when the haters come out of the woodwork. And even though I've got like a very small following, very small presence on the internet, I have already had I've already had about a half dozen really seething haters. I've had one psycho stalker already, who was a girl that worked with me for about a week at a titty bar and insisted that she had carried three of my children to term. That was a little weird. But I kind of revel in the fucking weirdness, man. I mean, what are you gonna do? When you put yourself out there in a public forum, that is the thing about being involved in any of this stuff. You put yourself out there in a public forum, you are subjecting yourself to whatever comes your way, and you gotta have a thick skin and roll with the punches. That's why I've always had contempt, nothing but contempt for a lot of these fucking celebrities. Well, I can't get any privacy. It's like, dude, do you know why you make $20 million a picture? Because everyone seems to think that you are the shit. So you're making 20 million a picture, build a taller fence or a more remote fucking property and have a big cup of shut the fuck up. I would love to have that level of reach. I would love to have that level of reach with a tenth of that fucking money. Because for me, it's about the message. For me, it's about what my voice can do to bring other people to the light. So anyway, these people that get upset about the weirdness and the stalkers and the haters and shit like that, bro, bring it. Fuck, man, it lets me know that at least someone is fucking paying attention. Vincent, Vincent, bring all the little girls in the chat, bro. Well, okay. You might want to be a little more specific with that. All the all the cursing for you, bro. All right, man. We can roll with that, Vince. We can roll with that. Oh shit. I know you were, man. I know you were joking. I know, but it's funny, man. It's always funny because now, Bill Burr is always talking about this, where like once something leaves your mouth, it's no longer yours. Like what you actually said, what your intent was, whether or not it was a joke. Once it jumps out of your face, you don't own it anymore. It's whatever a fucking blogger or a hater or a hanger on, decides to make out of it, and once you don't own it anymore. But again, I don't care. You got to have a thick skin. When I fuck up, I'll own it. When I'm joking, I'm fucking joking. And if that short dicks every cannibal on the Congo, I don't give two flying fucks at six rolling donuts. It's a fucking joke. Lighten up. G Dub, spend a night in Eastern Tennessee. I am now convinced that Dollywood is a front for a mega prepper academy. G Dub, I know you're joking, but here's an interesting semi-related footnote. Back when I was doing satellite work in the late '90s, early 2000s, I went on a repoint project. It was a project that we did for the LDS Church. And look, and right now I can already hear like two or three of you out there who were raised Mormon and you're bristling and whatever. Okay, fine. Feel how you want about the doctrine, right? In my experience, and I can speak only for myself, everyone who I have interacted with from the LDS Church they are fucking amazing people. They're amazing people. Now, how do we get on the Mormon thing? Well, this is the thing when he's talking about like Mega Prepper Academy. When we're out there on this Repoint project, every facilities management group is assigned like a region, right? So you've got like your main temple in Portland, and then you have all these like far flung areas where there are other temples, right? And sometimes you may drive an hour out in the middle of fucking nowhere and not see a single house for that entire hour, but laid back way in the fucking forest is a temple. a fully equipped, fully stocked, fully supplied temple out in the fucking boondocks. Now, the Mormons have been the Mormons, the LDS Church. They've been very important to the prepper community for as long as there's been a prepper movement and before. Preparedness is actually part of their doctrine. Um, but it was on that project that it occurred to me. It was like, well, wait a minute, why the fuck have they got this temple? They've got like a dozen temples out the fuck here, and I was like, got it, got it. So all of the faithful in Portland that need to bug in, you've got that central temple, and all the ones that manage to bug out, they've got a dozen different locations to go to. If you don't have going into what could be a multi-generational grid down tits up without rule of law shit hit the fan situation, if you do not have friends in two demographics, you better make some. And those two demographics are going to be Amish and fucking Mormons. Dude, they are dug in like Alabama ticks. They are stacked to the rafters, and they take care of their own. But again, beyond just taking care of their own, I did volunteer work at the Bishop's Storehouse in Spokane, and I'll give you a brief rundown of the story. I went in there looking to use the Bishop's Storehouse and the cannery and some of their stuff, and I went in initially to ask if I, as a non-parishioner, could use their facilities, and they said yes, absolutely. Our facilities are open to whoever. You do not have to be a member of it. But it was right around holiday season, and I noticed that they were just swamped because they do the outreach. They take trucks and they drive out of these remote areas and they help out needy families. And you've got needy families that come to the Bishop's Storehouse. And I'm talking Mormon and non-Mormon alike. People who are in need, in genuine need, will show up at the Bishop's Storehouse and they will give them food and supplies and all this other stuff. And I looked and they were totally overwhelmed. And I was like, I want to use their facility, but if I'm gonna if they are going to grace me with the privilege to use their facilities for my own preparedness needs, I feel like I got to earn my keep here. So for 2 years in a row, I volunteered at the Bishop's Storehouse, particularly during holiday season or like the high volume weeks of the year. I've made a couple of friends that have been lifelong friends. I've made a couple of lifelong friends out of the deal. My bro Danelle up in Idaho, fantastic human being. He's got me on. He's the guy that like boosted me into the ham radio thing. Just great fucking people. And I will tell you this: the level of efficiency at this Bishop's Storehouse. If I were to ever be a part of, and again, we're being very far fetched now, but if I were to ever be in charge of a government food distribution and relief office, I would hire nothing but LDS people to fucking run it. The level of efficiency there is unfucking believable. Literally every scrap pieces of cardboard, they will use a Sharpie marker and use it to designate where an order is going. Packaging is recycled in-house until it can no longer be recycled and reused in-house, and then it gets like outside recycled. They're amazing. And the other thing that I noticed is, unlike the government offices where every dreg and tweaker and scumbag and just wretched piece of human debris is showing up with an entitled sense of, man, you're gonna give me something to fucking feed my face because I gotta go chase my fucking dope money. You didn't see that at the Bishop's Storehouse at all. You saw families, man. You saw families with kids, like pulling up in a fucking 20-year-old truck or whatever, no doubt going to a trailer park somewhere. But these were like legit families. And the thing that I noticed is that when these families showed up at Bishop's Storehouse, like all the kids, they look like they've been rode hard and put up wet and fucking sleeping under a bridge. They may have been, but they didn't look like it. They were all clean faces, clean fingernails. It was something, man. That was it was a very shaping experience for me, and I was glad that I did it. Anyway, yes. So Big Prepper Academy was yeah, Big Prepper Academy was what set that off. And you know what, G Dub, Dollywood may be it. But then again, I'm also convinced that Arby's is basically a money laundering front for Eastern crime syndicates. So you know, there's that. But we're not gonna jump down to conspiracy mill. Let me get a couple of sponsor shout outs out of the way real quick. First of all, to my long term friend and brother Roman at opiumtales.com and his lovely wife Carrie and Roxy and Allie and the beautiful women over there. Carrie and Roman are in Romania right now. They are very, very enamored of the whole Eastern European thing. They vacation over there about every year. Uh, it's not what it's not what regular people would think of as a tourist destination, but when you are astute students of history, particularly Cold War history, in this instance, it's some fascinating shit. And when it comes down to historical, we have had enough moments. Never forget with the Romanians. You could say whatever you want about the Romanians, but when they have had enough, you will fucking know it. Last time it happened under Ceausescu, they had a show trial in the palace, drug the prime minister and his wife outside the palace, put them up against the wall, and machine gun them to death on television on Christmas. So yeah, when Romanians have had enough, you will fucking know it. Anyway, Roman and Carrie are over in Romania right now. They are catching the replays as they come in. They have been friends and supporters of the program. Roman and I go all the way back to 1988. They're the erotic pinups and portraits people. Beautiful watercolors of beautiful naked women and testosterone driven commentary. Go over and check them out. Opiumtales.com. And he's back on the Twitter format last I checked. So you can check him out over there as well. Give him a follow. Also, my Viking brothers, of course, Casey and Dusty Tellison from Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest. Period. End of statement. Done. I will beat up a stranger in front of his kids for a place of those fucking ribs, man. I am not even playing around. They are fan-fucking-tastic. And I'm Texas by way of North Carolina. So I understand some fucking barbecue across the spectrum. Some of the best fucking barbecue I've ever put in my mouth, and the only legit barbecue in the inland Northwest region. They are out every Thursday. They got the Viking Long ship, their big smoker trailer at American Gun and Pawn right there off of Sprague. So if you're in the Spokane area or over in the Coeur d'Alene or fuck, man, make the drive from Bonner's Ferry or Missoula. I don't give a fuck. Thank me later. It's fantastic. And they are good friends of mine and supporters of the program, Nordic Smoke Barbecue. All right. Neil Ross. That's where Vlad the Impaler's from. Makes it a worthwhile place to visit. Fucking absolutely, right? That's I think the euphemistic term for post-apocalyptic torture is going to be a Vlad the Impaler weenie roast. I mean, bro, you want to talk about badasses? When you think about historical badasses, like you think about the Russians, you think about the Germans, you think about some of the older, you think about the Mongols, the Khans. You don't think Romania until you think about what they did to Ceausescu at the end of that fucking communist reign. And then you think back a little bit further to fucking Vlad, who would legit impale his enemies on stakes, set them on fire with oil, and eat under the light of his burning bodies of his enemies impaled on stakes. Probably not a group of people you really want to fuck with. And maybe the communist regime there should have thought about that ahead of time. But it's not like communist regimes are really known for their foresight now, is it? Anyway, so those are the sponsor shout outs. I did not see if Ryan has made it on yet, but we are about to jump in to that ever popular segment that we always kick off the program with, talking about Ryan's Rabbit Hole. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Let me pass around. Nice little round of applause. Ryan's Rabbit Hole. Ryan's Rabbit Hole is a little segment that we got started courtesy of Ryan Jenkins, who is like my flesh and blood in every relevant sense. He is the brother who opened up the path for me to change my life and get into the crane trade. As we all know, I am not a guru. I'm just a crane operator with some opinions, boys and girls. So fucking hashtag that shit if you want. Ryan and I bonded over, well, we bonded over a lot of things, but one of the things that we bonded over early on was the penchant that we both have for the obscure and the esoteric. We are repositories of useless information. We are murder to play a game of Trivial Pursuit with for that exact reason. So we go into some of this obscure stuff. Generally, these come out of conversations that we have over coffee or sometimes over the phone. I try to talk to Ryan at least once a week, and usually right after the sermon, I'll give him a call. Uh, and we'll have a conversation sometimes just like the rabbit hole. Sometimes it's personal, sometimes it's historical, sometimes it's philosophical, sometimes it's conspiratorial. This week is going to be historical. And this history is going to have a tie-in with at least two of the bullet points. And again, that was serendipity, nothing else. Serendipity. That's my college word. I got like three of those. But that was serendipitous. It wasn't something that we had actually planned. And but anyway, your buzzwords, what you're going to want to look up on Google, is Mary Toft. Mary Toft in the early 1700s. This is how, okay. You will always be told, trust the experts. You will always be told, trust the science. You will always be told that the doctors know all and they are the new priesthood, and to question them is heresy. You will also be told, believe all women, because women don't make things up. A little bit harder to pull that off nowadays in the age where everyone is connected 24 hours a day. But Mary Toft in the early 1700s, uh, basically, she became pregnant. She miscarried. And the early medical reports, now these are doctors, by the way, these are doctors in the 1700s. These aren't just laymen, wasn't just farmer midwives that were telling old midwives tales around the campfire or whatever. These are legit doctors in the 1700s. It actually got published in a couple of medical journals that Mary Toft had given birth to rabbits. Yeah. See, after the miscarriage, apparently some doctor withdrew a number of severed body parts of rabbits from her vagina. Yeah, in much the same way that late term abortionists tear apart actual human fetuses and withdraw them one piece at a time, they basically pulled rabbit pieces out of Miss Mary Toft. Now, it none other than King George's household physician bought into this. It was published in private correspondences. It was published in medical journals, the approximation of medical journals at the time. Obviously, we didn't have like the New England Journal of Medicine as we know it today. But, the high ranking doctors, the doctors that served royalty, they all communicated among themselves. And we are talking about doctors that had served the British royal family. And they investigated it. And it took finally one particular surgeon having because by this point, all of the doctors, all of the experts, they are the experts. We got to trust the experts. She says it. Women don't lie about things like this. And every other doctor, once it developed a little bit of traction, was afraid to say anything outside of that, even though it was obviously prima facie absurd. Once it developed traction with high ranking doctors, lower echelon doctors were loath to contest it. They were afraid of coming out going, hey, this again, back to the emperor wears no clothes analogy. They were afraid to be that 7-year-old that stepped out of the crowd and went, hey, the emperor's fucking naked. And everybody played along. All the doctors went along with it, even after a number of investigations. And look, even the most superficial fucking investigation is going to show that this is absolute horseshit. But the minute one of the royal court doctors said, this is a genuine thing, suddenly it had to be a genuine thing. Extrapolate that into modern day medical parlance. Take a look, do your own math. Mary Toft, Marytoft. Look into it. And that is the rabbit hole for the week. And it does have a happy ending. No, I don't mean she masturbated a rabbit, although it could have happened, not ruling it out. Eventually, that little 7-year-old stepped out of the crowd. It took a doctor stepping out of the crowd to do a thorough investigation and say, look, this is nonsense. And the first 3 doctors to respond to him saying it was nonsense excoriated him. This is a perfect example of what you've heard me refer to before as the tyranny of everybody knows. And it continues to this day. Peer pressure is a powerful motivator. Why? Because fear is a powerful motivator. Peer pressure has its roots and its strengths in fear. Fear of being ostracized, fear of not being part of the in group. And when I say in group, I don't mean like the in crowd, dude. I mean like the tribal in group with regard to human biological imperatives and evolutionary biology. So the rabbit hole this week is quite literally a rabbit hole. And her being pregnant with rabbits, I guess, would put a spin on the joke about the rabbit test. Do with it what you want. I know Dennis and Neil, being the fucking punsters that they are just going to fucking blow up my comments over here with every fucking bit of wordplay that they can put together on it. G-Dub already out. Wow, legit rabbit hole this week. Yeah, see? And the hits just keep on coming. But yes, Mary Toft, that is going to be Ryan's rabbit hole for the week. Check it out online and follow it down as far as it suits you to go. But check it out. Again, this is something that, and we try to do that with every rabbit hole. We try to tie it in. Maybe it's not even something that's a subject for the week. Like we're not doing the Fauci cast. We're not doing the COVID cast this week. So, it's not like we're tying it in directly, but we want all of these rabbit holes to have something that resonates. Something that you want to follow that rabbit hole because it'll have some impact on your life and your worldview in terms of current realities. Because anything outside of that is just intellectual masturbation. Don't get me wrong, I'm all about masturbation, but if I'm going to masturbate my brain, I'm going to have a porn star ride my forehead. So there's that. And I do have pictures right now. Right now, I'm thinking about that one shot with Chloe Nicole perched on top of my shaved little dome. But anyway, yeah, so that's where we're at. So Ryan's rabbit hole for the week, Mary Toft. Check it out and give it a look. All right. Speaking of rabbit holes and rabbit tests and okay, you know what? Before we even get off into that, I do want to revisit, particularly since G-Dub is here right now, and he might have some commentary to offer that will prove enlightening. But the crowds that are giving the middle fingers to the Great Reset movement, y'all need to be watching the Netherlands. Actually, beyond the Netherlands, you need to be keeping an eye on all of Europe, because all of the things that they are pushing with the ESG movement, the Great Reset crowd, the Green New Deal, all of this stuff that's coming down the pike. The first pushback was in Canada with the truckers, but now they decided that they were going to move even harder in the Netherlands and start confiscating private farmland. Why? Because they're going to take it away from these farmers who can't manage it themselves within environmental parameters. Their carbon footprint is going to be too big. So the government is going to have to seize that land and run these farms in a manageable way that won't increase carbon emissions, that won't make a bigger impact environmentally. And that's what they have going on in the Netherlands. But the farmers, as farmers tend to be, particularly old school farmers, like generations old, family owned farms. Oh God, really, man? I knew it was coming. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. All right. So, watership. Jesus, bro. God. Okay. Uh, Back to the Netherlands. Back to the farmers. So they up armored their tractors because the police were taking shots at them when they drove their tractors into town to block traffic, to protest this movement, to say that they would not go quietly. The police did, what you would expect statist police to do, and open fire. They said this isn't going to work out too well. They had some people get wounded, so they went back to the farms and they up armored their tractors. G Dub refers to this as the Heemeyer effect with regard to Killdozer, right? There is nothing that can substitute for hillbilly engineering. And when I say hillbilly, I mean that in the kindest possible way. You want to know where the gun truck idea came from during the Vietnam era? A bunch of Tennessee and Carolina goddamn redneck hillbillies that had M35A2 deuce and a halves that were unarmored, that were getting shot at. They got tired of getting shot at. And they said, hey, these are big, heavy trucks that'll carry big, heavy shit. We're going to armor the fuck out of it because we all know how to weld and we all know how to do work with steel. And so they did. Heemeyer, same basic thing. Heemeyer wasn't a hillbilly in the true sense, but when he had had enough, he armored a bulldozer. He took a look at a bulldozer. I mean, like, look, man, you look at the battlefield, you look at a tank. Difference between a tank and a heavy, diesel fucking cat dozer, or for that matter, a grader, a fucking roller, any kind of heavy fucking road construction equipment. The difference between that and fucking armor on the battlefield is literally the thickness of the fucking steel and the armaments. All right. This is another thing. Every time it comes back to the argument of, civilian resistance couldn't fucking fight power of the United States government. Okay, Sparky, let me know how that works out for you. If you couldn't hold down Kandahar with a bunch of goat fucking savages, try holding down Montana. Good luck with that. Anyway, got off on a little bit of a tangent there, which is so out of character for me. But the farmers in the Netherlands, they're fighting back. And guess who's joining their cause? The fucking firefighters. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The people who make the system work. This is where the elites consistently underestimate, and this is where the elites consistently overreach. You have a demographic that lives in the city. They live off the work and the efforts of the rest of us who are out here in the real fucking world. They turn the switch and the light comes on because of fucking linemen out here climbing fucking power poles and keeping shit running. They go to the store and there's food on the shelf because of guys like G-Dub who are delivering fucking cargo that make it possible for these people to live. Trust me. On the spectrum of who needs whom, not even close. The cities could eat themselves, and rural blue collar working folk aren't even going to notice. The only effect it's going to have on them is when people start flooding out of the cities into the countryside, we're going to have to burn up some ammo. That's it. The elites, for all their talk, particularly on the left, about being advocates for the working class, none of these motherfuckers work. Why do working class people keep voting against their interest? Hey, Sparky, how the fuck would you know what our interest is? You're not one of us. Seems pretty simple. Can't get their heads around it. And again, they overreached. They think that because the grazer demographic in the cities and the suburbs is just going to play along, well, yes, we should listen to the authorities because top down management is always going to work out. The government knows best how to distribute food and resources and keep the climate from overheating the planet. Yeah, they're going to go along. But you forgot about the people that actually make it work, the truck drivers, the linesmen, the construction people, the guys that run heavy equipment, crane whores like myself. We make the shit run. So when the farmers and the truck drivers say, fuck you should probably take notice. And they have. They doubled down on their efforts to fucking squash everything, just like Trudeau did in Canada with the truck drivers, freezing their bank accounts, all the other things. They are hell bent for leather on implementing their fucking agenda, and it's not going to work out. It's one thing to fight a war in theory. It's one thing to fight a war of information control. It's one thing to fight a war of propaganda and convince the grazer horde that your agenda is right and good. It is something else entirely to put boots on the ground and force that shit to happen. And in the final analysis, that's how it's going to be. Now, I can't speak for the military and the rest of the world, but I will say this about the American military. The American military, largely made up. Now, granted, and again, Joey, I can already hear where you're going with it. You know, with the woke politics and the shifts and the transitions and everything. I already know it's cool. I get it, but it's made up of, which is one of the reasons why they had to boot everybody out for the vaccines, why they had to realign the general class and all these other things, because they realize that the American military is made up largely of guys from blue collar fucking backgrounds. If you were upper middle class from a master plan community in the suburbs, you're not in the military. If you are, you're probably working intel because your legacy, because your parents or grandparents were in the military. But the rank and file, the boots on the ground, the grunts in particular, again, the people that make it work, they all come from blue collar backgrounds. Why? Because most of them joined the military for the economic opportunities that they would not have otherwise had. Which side of the fence do you think they're going to break on when it all comes down? Have the debate. But I tell you where my heart is at. Also, I don't know if Sonny has made it in yet. Hopefully, he is in the background somewhere. Um, Sonny and I had a very polite exchange earlier in the week with regard to that. Like and he's never made any bones about that. He does not share my optimism with regard to us having hit the tipping point. What set that dialogue off was when Zelensky released that fucking scumbag rapist war criminal and put him back on the front lines against ethnic Russians in fucking Donbass while we sent them another $1.6 billion of fucking military aid. And Sonny was quite correct in his reaction. He does not share my enthusiasm. He does not share my thought that we are past the tipping point. And I totally see where he's coming from on that. And I agree. My only caveat, my only retort to that, from a place of deep respect, you guys know the bond that Sonny and I have, is that in my observation, we are not going to be able to change anything on the foreign policy front until we get things changed on the domestic front. And I maintain, and you guys are more than happy after November, if it doesn't go that way, you guys are more than welcome to come by and go, yeah, Rev, how'd that work out for you? And you know what I'm going to have to say to that? I was wrong. Let's knuckle up, because at that point, there's no other resort. Okay. But I feel like we have to change it domestically. And even domestically is going to be difficult when you have rhinos like Crenshaw and rhinos, Eye Patch McCain, and McConnell and Graham and those fucks that continue to send aid to the fucking Ukraine in spite of everything that's going on there. We'll touch on Ukraine a little bit later, but yeah, it was so we had that exchange, and again, I'm with Sonny on that. I am absolutely. Maybe, in all honesty, in the final analysis, maybe it is just blind optimism on my part. I I hope that it isn't, but it could be. I don't want to rule out that fucking possibility. Anyway, how do we get off on that? So back to the farmers. The farmers in the Netherlands, they are fighting. They are fighting. They are not about to come off of their land. They are up armoring their fucking tractors and taking it right back to the police. They are using, because the police have those, they got their big, fucking, yeah, oh, look at our militarized fucking armored vehicles. And they forget that while that's all right and good in a urban house to house fighting situation, it's got fuck all on torque compared to a fucking combine or a tractor. So they are using these up armored tractors and just pushing them right off the fucking road. People, we have the power, okay? We do hold all of it, ultimately, if we are willing to step up, let our balls drop, and exercise it. And all it takes is a little bit. Since these guys started fighting in the Netherlands, the Italians have come on board, right? The Poles have come on board. You want to talk about a demographic, a nation, a race, if you will, of people who understand the negative aspects of authoritarianism from both sides of the spectrum. Look no further than Poland, also the source of several of my favorite doom bands. Anyway, um, they have, as Dennis was just pointing out, they have literally turned their manure cannons into weapons against government buildings, literally spraying government buildings with shit. Cops don't really have a response for that. They're pushing back. They are setting the tone. Keep your eye on the Netherlands, keep your eye on Europe and how those people are pushing back, and take a look at the response that the system has and where it goes. Because right now, they are the canary in the fucking globalist coal mine. They are the ones taking it on the fucking chin right now, setting the pace in the hopes that that little spark is going to light a much bigger fire. Here in the States, I'll be the first to say, as a proud citizen of the United States of America, let me be the first to say, we should be fucking ashamed of ourselves. We really should. On every front, by every measure, every definition. Looking at these people with nothing to lose. You got guys that'll give 20-minute, 30-minute testimonies in front of the United States Congress talking about how we should send 1.6 billion to Ukraine. In a world that made any sense, in a world where legitimate blue collar motherfuckers were running the show, we'd be sending 1.6 billion and then some to fucking farmers and firemen and blue collar guys in fucking Netherlands, putting our support behind them. All we can give them right now is moral support. There will be internet avenues available for you to give them financial support sooner or later if they don't shut it down. But watch the Netherlands, watch Europe. They are the canary in the globalist coal mine right now. I wanted to cover that before we got into any of the other bullet points, because that is the story of greatest import right now. What's up, Mr. Wright? What is this? A squad of oppressors with automatics at 1,000 yards against one farmer with a high-end scope. I know who my money is on. Fuck yeah, G-Dub. Fuck yeah, without a doubt. And especially when the farmer with the high-end scope is actually a farm boy who joined the military, and now him and his 10 buddies have jumped ship, bringing their equipment and their weapons and their skill sets with them to train the insurgents. I mean, isn't that what they're going to hang on us? Isn't that the label? What am I wearing this week? White Devil. That's me, buddy. That's the label you're going to hang on me. I'm going to wear it. I don't care. You call me an insurgent? Okay, I'll wear that. Call me a 3%er. Call me a fucking right-wing extremist. Okay, man. Hang that label on me and I will fucking wear it. I will do it. Absolutely, without equivocation. Just remember, it was you that hung it on me, and I'm just rising to your expectations. Next bullet point. So that's what's going on in the Netherlands. You guys saw in the header You guys saw in the header, and I have to issue right out of the starting gate. When I am wrong, I own it. And I have to issue a mea culpa for last week with regard to the news story about the 10-year-old rape victim in Ohio that had to allegedly go to Indiana to have an abortion done. A 10-year-old rape victim had to go to Indiana because she was 3 days past the cutoff point for Ohio's abortion law. I said quite vehemently last week that that story is completely unsubstantiated, and I believe it to be false. I believe my exact quote was, "It's bullshit. You know it. I know it. And the sooner the facts come out, the better off we're going to be." I was incorrect. I was absolutely unequivocally incorrect in the statement that the story was bullshit. Turns out that there was a 10-year-old rape victim in the state of Ohio. Turns out that she was transported to Indiana for the sake of having an abortion, because allegedly because she was 3 days past the state's cutoff law. Now, right now, if you look that up on Google, abortion story confirmed, it's going to pull up a dozen things of left wing sources thumping their chest about, haha, the right's not going to doubt us anymore. I mean, first of all, how could we have ever doubted them? I mean, it's not like we just lived through Russiagate and Jussie Smollett and fucking, the Kavanaugh hearings, and who is this latest cunt to testify in front of the January 6th committee. Yeah, I can't imagine why we would ever have anything to doubt about what they said. But yeah, they're thumping their chests about it. It's like a big fucking there was a 10-year-old that got raped, and she did have to go to abortion. Slate has got a big long article on it. An abortion story confirmed. Yeah, okay. And then they don't want to talk much about it past that point. And there's a reason they don't want to talk about it past that point. And a lot of it has to do with exactly the reasons that we doubted the story in the first place. It seems a bit contrived. It was inadequately sourced. No one could provide any substantiation and documentation. And now the details are coming out. Yes, indeed, there was a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old who was living in a home. Now, again, anyone who doubted the story, anyone who casts aspersions on the story is going to be labeled a right-wing extremist. Going to be really, really interesting over the course of the next week or two, watching the mainstream leftist media label Telemundo as a right-wing extremist news organization. You see, it was Ohio and Telemundo in Ohio that first brought us the rest of the details of that story. The mainstream media was loath to report it. They didn't want to give the details about the actual, because the first question we asked were, where's the perpetrator? We found out why they don't want to let anybody know who the perpetrator is, because the perpetrator is an illegal immigrant. Yeah, perpetrator is an illegal immigrant. And again, all of the secondary stuff came out courtesy of Telemundo. While the left wing was still thumping their chest about, you doubted us and how dare you play, doing the whole thing of trying to hold us emotionally hostage. I will be the first to say at this point, now that the story has been fucking substantiated, you would be inhuman, myself included, you would be inhuman to not have sympathy. You would be inhuman to not have sympathy for a victim of something like that. You would also be inhuman to not have sympathy with what the left has done to this victim to make political hay. As it turns out, the reason why she was 3 days past the cutoff point of Ohio, they would have you think that she reported 3 days past the cutoff point. That is not what happened at all. They were aware that there had been a rape. They were aware that the victim was 10 years old. They were aware that the rapist was not only an illegal immigrant, but in fact, the boyfriend of the victim's mother. They were aware of all of these things, and they waited very specifically to 3 days after the deadline to transport this child across into Indiana to have that abortion, as if the law would have prevented it. They had painted a narrative that could not be further from the truth. They knew that this child had been raped. They knew that this child had been impregnated. They knew who the rapist was. And they kept all of that buried for the sake of making a political point. Are you tracking? You want to say that it's sick that Jim Jordan came out and said, I don't believe the story? You want to say it's sick that the Ohio Attorney General at first said, man, we can't provide any documentation for this, and I have my doubts about it? That's sick? No, what's sick is knowing that you have a 10-year-old who's essentially been raped and impregnated by her stepfather. You know that he's done it. You know when it happened, and you specifically keep everything buried and under wraps until 3 days past the cutoff point, where you take the child across into Indiana to have the abortion without even consulting or asking anyone in the state of Ohio to see if there would be an exception under the law. As it turns out, there was. The Ohio Attorney General has said there are numerous provisions under this Ohio case. A 10-year-old being impregnated by her stepfather had been a victim of sexual violence before. The Attorney General of the state of Ohio said that there were at least 4 provision exemptions for this child. The abortion could have been done in Ohio. None of this had to happen. None of this had to happen, period. From the 10-year-old being raped forward, none of this had to happen. But the left, while thumping their chest about what shitbags we were for doubting it because it was improperly sourced and thoroughly unsubstantiated with any sort of factual, tangible evidence, these sick fucks knew that a 10-year-old had been raped and impregnated by her stepfather and kept all of the information about the stepfather from the police, kept all the information about the 10-year-old, the pregnant rape victim 10-year-old, from any medical authority except that one doctor, and then carted off to Indiana to get the abortion done, which could have been done way earlier. Probably should have. There was nothing in the state of Ohio law preventing that. And just to make political points, these sick, ghoulish motherfuckers have ensured that this 10-year-old is going to be on the radar for life. They made a political football out of the life of a 10-year-old. Now, you want to say we're sick for doubting the story? Okay. Cool. I'll own that. I don't agree. I think that it's perfectly rational in this day and age, in light of what we know leftists have lied about and what they have lied about it to achieve. I think it's irresponsible not to have doubts. But okay, if it makes me a bad guy for saying, hey man, I'm going to wait for the evidence, cool, I'll be a bad guy. Don't care. But that's not nearly on the level of sick. And don't talk to me about whataboutism. Oh, that's whataboutism. Whataboutism. No, I'm just pointing out that all we said was we don't think it happened. What they did was bury information from a criminal investigation, a medical investigation, and the mainstream media and the public about a 10-year-old girl who was raped and impregnated by her stepfather. So, on the scale of moral equivalency here, I'm not even going to act like we're in the same sport, let alone the same fucking ballpark. But wait, as they say, but wait, there's more. So I did a quick Google search, Ohio Attorney General on rape case. First ones to pull up from the Daily Beast. Slamming on AG Yost for not checking Columbus police records. What are Ohioans saying about this? How Jim Jordan's a scumbag. Indiana doctor who provided abortion services to 10-year-old rape victim. I mean, basically, it's exactly what you would expect from the Google algorithm. Oh, our saviors on the left, and how foolish the right was for doubting them. Yada yada yada, fucking yada. And then Telemundo. Scroll down until you get to the Telemundo story. Anybody out there speak Spanish? Because I'm going to play the audio. Turns out the mother of the 10-year-old rape victim went on Telemundo to defend the rapist. As it turns out, the guy that raped and impregnated this 10-year-old is the domestic partner of the mother. Now, I can't confirm this last part, but the indications are that the mother may actually also be pregnant with one of these motherfuckers' kids now, and it was not the first time. The mother was aware of it. The first, second, and apparently third times that there was genital contact with this fucking child, she was aware that the child had been impregnated. Maria Vargas Pion from Telemundo. Did the girl live here as well? I'm just gonna fucking play this. No.
La niña vivía aquí también.
Did the girl live here as well? Yes, but she's fine. Everything that they're saying against him is a lie. And the child, are you related to her? Are you her mother? She's my daughter. That's the extent of my fucking Spanish. But yeah, the mother is denying that he did anything, refused to press charges, even though the Attorney General's office and the criminal justice system has taken the motherfucker into custody and pressed charges against him. He is here illegally. He's here illegally. He is living with the victim's mother. The mother didn't do anything to protect her own fucking child. In fact, she is defending the rapist. And the only thing the left has to say about that is, what about the mother's fear of deportation? Let me run that by you again. The leftist media, when confronted with, okay, there was a victim, but there's more to the story, spun it to say that we should be concerned about the mother because the backlash behind all of this thing may get her deported, and that the rapist himself, this was actually in a goddamn article, is the sole and only breadwinner for the family, and he may be deported as well, which complicates things. So again, as long as we are talking sickness and moral fucking outrage, us doubting the story, you sick fucks, it would have been better for you on a moral level if the whole thing had been a lie. In fact, if I had been doing damage control for the Biden White House, not only would I not have brought it up, but I would have actually dismissed the story. I would have been like, no, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Because when the truth comes out about it, it's infinitely fucking worse. I want you to ponder this. Again, this is the level of sick that we're fucking dealing with here. Okay? An illegal immigrant male living with an illegal immigrant female regularly sexually molests the daughter of that illegal immigrant female. That illegal immigrant female is aware of the abuse and allows it to continue. The 10-year-old who is being raped by the illegal immigrant male becomes impregnated by the illegal immigrant male. The abortion activist community, looking to paint up America as the fucking Handmaid's Tale 2.0, gets wind of this, keeps the identity of the illegal immigrant male a secret, keeps necessary medical details all amongst themselves, just that one fucking doctor, until 3 days past the 6-week cutoff, in the Ohio abortion law, and then without even asking, without even going to the cops first and saying, hey, this 10-year-old got raped and impregnated by this illegal immigrant scumbag. Can we do something, A, to have his ass locked up, and B, to have an abortion, a DNC, early on, 6-week mark for this 10-year-old? They didn't bother with any of that. They didn't go to law enforcement. They didn't take her to a hospital. They sped her across, having already made arrangements in Indiana a week before to go over and have that abortion done exactly 3 days past the fucking cutoff to make a political point. You feel me? Are we tracking here? So tell me again how sick we are for doubting the fucking story. On a pure moral level, it would have been better for you if it was a fucking lie. Because the truth is too fucking gruesome to comprehend. And then this same group who perpetrated this entire thing and made a political football out of a raped and impregnated 10-year-old girl, their concern beyond the abortion, of course, but their concern that the mother may be deported, they're concerned that the adult illegal immigrant male who raped and impregnated a 10-year-old girl is the sole and only breadwinner for the family and what's going to happen to them. We are living in different realities here, people. We are living in different realities, and more to the point, we are living in different moralities. Yes, I absolutely believe that abortion services should be available to a 10-year-old who finds herself in that position. And lo and behold, they were. But to make it seem as if they were not, they kept essential medical and criminal information secret. Are you tracking? You see how sick this is? And even with all that they had to do to make this happen, so they'd have their little one political example to hang their fucking hats on, which we'll be hearing about for the next 10 years without hearing all the relevant details. One case, one fucking case, a horrible case, made more horrible by the fact of them keeping this buried so they could make a political point out of it. Absolutely and without equivocation, abortion services should have been available to that child. Here's the kicker: they were. The Attorney General in Ohio has said so. Even if they had not come out and publicly said so, what do you think is going to happen in the court of public opinion if they would have said, we have a 10-year-old, she is not to the cutoff point yet, or she is even past the cutoff point. We took her to a legitimate doctor in Ohio. And the doctor in Ohio said, no, we will not do it because she's 3 days past the cutoff point. They didn't do that. If they would have taken the, again, illegal immigrant, rapist, child rapist, had him hooked and booked, I said, look, man, this guy raped and knocked up a 10-year-old girl. What can we do for the girl? No one with any sort of conscience would have been able to say, no, no, sorry, the law is the law. I'm sure you've got the Westboro Baptist crowd that would have forced her to carry the term anyway. I'm not going to act like these people don't fucking exist, but guys, let's be real, shall we? There's a hell of a lot more reason coming from one side than the other here, because one side specifically buried this thing so they could make a political football out of a raped and impregnated 10-year-old girl. Don't talk to me about how sick we are for having doubts. Don't talk to me about that. I'm not going to hear it. fucking sick. That was bullet point number one. Again, the stories in question, the one you're going to want to look at: mother of 10-year-old Ohio rape victim goes on Telemundo, defends rapist. So just keep digging, because you're not going to hear about that on CNN. CNN and MSNBC and the entire rest of the mainstream media are too busy sucking each other's cocks, including that Maddow guy, and patting themselves on the fucking back about, ha ha ha, there really was. You never should have doubted us. We got one right. Yeah, 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 yeah. You made a political football out of a raped fucking 10-year-old, and you knew what you were doing. That's with malice aforethought. You motherfuckers are especially kind of you motherfuckers are a special kind of sick. Yep, absolutely, Brett. You're right. They lost him in the court of public opinion. The majority, and he's right. You start looking at it. They like throwing out about the Roe versus Wade decision. 78% of the American public say that abortion. Yeah, okay, fine. 78% say that Roe versus Wade should have stood. Go into how many people know what the fuck Roe versus Wade even said as a legal decision, but let's dig a little bit deeper. Overwhelming majority of Americans support abortion on demand through the first trimester. Nearly 100% support abortion in case of rape or incest or where the life of mother is threatened. Things start getting a little shady when we get up around the 6-week mark. Excuse me. Yes. Things, beg your pardon. Things start getting a little shady when we get past the first 12 weeks. Okay. Once we get past the first, I'm sorry, I still had 6 weeks in my head because of the Ohio thing. Once we get past the first trimester, things start getting a little shady. This 78% of the American people support is utter bullshit once you get past the first trimester. The overwhelming majority say that there should be very, very tight restrictions past the first trimester. And your support, except from the shout your abortion crowd, drops off to practically fucking zero when we get into the third trimester. Late-term abortions, the overwhelming majority, study after study, case after case, poll after poll, show that the American public believe that in almost no circumstances should it be allowed in the third trimester. Literally only for rape, incest, or where the life of the mother is threatened. So this thing that they're making out of this 10-year-old girl, the overwhelming majority of the American public absolutely would have supported her being able to have an abortion. And again, as the Ohio Attorney General has now certified, she could have. But even though support for late-term abortion into the third trimester, it drops off to practically zero. Literally, the overwhelming majority of the American public in the third trimester supported only rape, incest, or where the life of the mother is threatened. No other reason. And yet, in 2 states, Virginia and Colorado, it is literally codified into law that it is legal for any reason up until the moment of birth. Well, Bart, that's an extreme example. Yeah, well, only 2% of abortions ever have anything to do with rape or incest, but you don't mind pulling that one out of your ass when you're trying to make a political point, do you? It is literally codified into law. This is not hyperbole. I'm not making this up. And you can find the one lady that was interviewed. You can find the interview with Governor Northam in Virginia, where he literally implied that after birth, letting the infant die would still be considered abortion. You can look that up. These aren't things that I'm making up. These aren't extreme examples that I'm pulling out of my ass. These are people that say these things publicly. And again, codified into law in Virginia and Colorado, maybe other states. I can only speak direct knowledge with regard to Virginia and Colorado, but it is literally codified into law up until the moment of birth. You can put a power drill into that baby's skull while it's crowning, And if you call it reproductive health, no harm, no fucking foul in the state of Virginia and the state of Colorado. Show me where I'm wrong. Show me where I'm incorrect in that. Oh, well, that would never happen. Yeah, right, like every other thing that would never fucking happen until it does. Show me where it couldn't happen. That's what I'd be interested to see, but you can't show me that. Again, I identify as pro choice. I believe in bodily autonomy, just like I believe that you have the right to refuse vaccines, but that's something else. Oh, and by the way, YouTube, since you're looking for another one to ding me on, I was very specific in my phrasing. I believe that people should have the right to refuse vaccines. Did not deny their efficacy, their effectiveness, blah, 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 blah. So if you're looking for a ding, that's not the one. Go fuck yourselves. I believe in bodily autonomy. And I do believe that up to a certain point, it is a matter of individual autonomy because that fetus is not viable. There are people who take issue with me on that, and you should, and we could have that debate all day long. Hardcore conservatives from the moment of conception, that is a fucking life under no circumstances. But okay, fine, cool. That's where you're at. I'm just being open and honest about where I'm at. Up until the moment of viability outside the womb, one can make. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen, look, come here, Sparky. Okay. Up until the moment of viability outside of the womb, one can make a case where it is a woman's decision independent of anyone else's life to terminate that pregnancy. Rewind it, listen to what I said again, listen to what I said, and listen to what I did not say. Up until the point of viability being the most important part. Once that is a viable life outside the womb, you are a fucking ghoul to even ponder identifying that as a clump of cells. You are a fucking ghoul to suggest that having that baby ripped apart in the womb and sucked out piece by piece at that point is just like taking out a chunk of earwax. You're fucking sick. That's where I'm at with it, across the fucking board. But again, all of us have, at least most of my male friends have some personal skin in this game. While you want to scream at us that, your body, your choice, and we don't have any fucking right to say something. Most of my male friends, myself included, have at least one instance where we did have some skin in the fucking game and may not have agreed with that. And I will leave it there. I will leave it there. Ryan, I see you, and I'm not playing along. As I've said before, and I will restate it now for the record, I believe that abortion, past the point of viability, I believe that abortion is murder. That said, I'm totally okay with murder. So, for the sake of intellectual honesty and ideological consistency, it is hard for me to come up with a good reason why you couldn't say it as long as you call it murder. If you are removing a life form that is otherwise viable outside of your body, it is not removing a clump of cells or a chunk of earwax. That is murder. Now, if you can look that in the face and say, yeah, but I'm murdering this kid, so I'll be better off in the long run, or I'm murdering this kid because the father isn't going to be around, or saying that this murder is a mercy kill, it's euthanasia, make that case. But don't tell me you're just removing a clump of cells, bitch. Sorry, doesn't work that way. So that's where we're at. Leading with the mea culpa, I was incorrect. There was a victim. There was a 10-year-old rape victim in the state of Ohio. I was incorrect in saying that the story was bullshit. Now that the truth, 22 weeks, depends on the study. Flu and Flame depends on the study, you know. But again, that's a debate for another time. I think you get the overall gist of where I'm coming from. I think that the actual sentiment is there, and it's pretty clear the point that I'm trying to make. We can dicker about statistics, and we should, and eventually we'll have to, because now it's been returned to the states. The states get to make the decision. They can dicker about it. If Ohio says 22 weeks and Texas says 16 weeks and California says you can kill it while it's crowning, that's for the states to decide now, as it should be. So that's where we're at. Um, but yeah, there was a 10-year-old rape victim. Um, when I said last week that it was bullshit, I was going on the best information that I had at the time. It seemed unsubstantiated. Well, it was unsubstantiated at the time, and it seemed contrived, and it seemed like bullshit. And as it turns out, I was incorrect. So, mea culpa for that. But now you have all the relevant details, and I think, at least on a moral level, it would have been much better if it had been bullshit. That's me. Um, so that's where we're at. Let's move on. Bullet point number two, bullet point number two, bullet point number two. Scroll back up to the top here. Yes. Bullet point number two, the embarrassment in Saudi. And I've got my tabs up top. Yeah, so we all got to watch our cadaver in chief this week. Do a fist bump with the Saudi prince. Now, goofy, stupid. I'm not going to make a huge scandal out of that. Because A, it's not like you knew what fucking planet he was on or what day it was. And B, at the very least, a fist bump beats the shit out of what his former boss did, bowing to a fucking Saudi prince. So I'm going to give Joe the benefit of the doubt on this one, but overall, it was a complete shit show. It was a complete fucking embarrassment. You remember back on the campaign trail where Joe said, we're going to take it to the Saudis and the murder of Khashoggi, and we're going to take it to them, and I'm not going to bow down, and I'm not going to kowtow. Well, okay. Now he's shut off U.S. production. We have gone over that at length. I'm not going to belabor the point any further with regard to that, but now he's going over to Saudi and begging with hat in hand to fucking produce more oil, to put more oil on the market to try to bring down some fucking gas prices. And the Saudis essentially said no. The press is trying to laud it as if it were a win because they said, yes, we're going to pick it back up 50%. Okay. That is taking it back up to regular levels from the 50% reduction in production that happened during the fucking pandemic. So no, this is not a win for Biden, but watching the mainstream press try to paint it up as a win for Biden is fucking glorious as usual. Here's one from The Intercept. MBS is back at Biden after the president confronts Saudi prince about Khashoggi. Bernie Sanders has crawled out of the communist woodwork to slam Biden for visiting Saudi Arabia at all. He was, let me see, from The Intercept, Saudi prince taunts Biden for caring more about Khashoggi than Shireen Abu Akleh. Mohammed bin Salman tried to exploit yada yada yada. Okay, well, we already know where this is going. The mainstream press is doing what they do. They are justifying him going to Saudi, justifying him treating them like an ally when Darth Cheeto was roundly raked over the coals and excoriated for having anything to do with them at all, let alone selling them arms. And listen, full disclosure, fuck the Saudis, okay? With allies like that, who the fuck needs enemies? Remember where most, in fact, all but 3 of the 9/11 hijackers were from Saudi. Okay, these are not our fucking allies. You look at what they're doing in Yemen. You look at their human rights abuses. Fuck, man, there are weeks where the Saudis make the Chinese seem positively benevolent in terms of fucking human rights. So don't talk to me about this shit. Stop it. Okay? Did they kill Khashoggi? Probably. And, they're an authoritarian dictatorship. Okay? They rule with an iron fucking hand. Them killing journalists, okay. In fact, I think it's interesting that every time a journalist comes up dead in Putin's fucking Russia, we got to make nine miles of hay about it. But the Saudis, they whacked this guy Khashoggi, chopped him up with a fucking bone saw, and fucking put him in a bag. But now we got a president right back over there like a little fucking lapdog. And I'm not, again, let me be abundantly clear, I'm not exempting Trump from this either. Trump was not, dude, I don't deify Trump. The Saudis are shitbags. The fact that we are continuing to sell them fucking arms under any presidency is fucking morally repugnant. It's utterly goddamn reprehensible, okay? It's just that Joe's the guy in charge now. They rate Trump over the coals for what he did over there, but everybody's high-fiving and fist bumping now that Joe is over there doing his thing. Yes, he briefly braced them about the Khashoggi situation and then got right back into his lapdog fucking mode, begging them to produce more oil. Now, there are reports that are coming out of there right now, up to and including that one or more of the Saudi bigwigs told Biden that he needed to reopen Keystone. I can't confirm that, but that's the scuttlebutt coming out of there right now. Here's what I can confirm. Wolf Blitzer, and I'll pull it up because by the time it got released on CNN, here's how CNN came out with it. CNN's actual website, Wolf Blitzer presses Saudi diplomat who was in meeting with Biden on Khashoggi's murder. That's how the CNN website depicts it. Unfortunately, Breitbart, those horrible right-wing fucking liars over at Breitbart, they didn't say what was in the interview. They posted the whole fucking interview. Now, if you were watching the interview at the time, you got to see all of these things. They happened. If you didn't, okay, I want you to go to Breitbart right now. Let me see if I can post the link. Maybe. Let me check this out here, guys. Again, we're on the fly. We are on the fly. Still trying to find my way around StreamYard, guys. My apologies. Banners. Let's create a banner. And there we go. Oh, shit. That's a big-ass fucking banner. Okay, add banner. Let's try it. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay, you may not want to talk about the whole thing, but you can see basically the gist of it right there. That was the article from Breitbart, and Breitbart posted the entire fucking interview. Now, according to CNN, they made it look like Wolf Blitzer was doing hard-hitting journalism about whether or not they got pressed on the Khashoggi issue, and they made it look like Biden really, really jammed them up. Then you go back and you look at the entire fucking interview on Breitbart, wasn't anything this short. Blitzer asked, did President Biden, and the whole interview is there. Listen, man, you listen to it in your own fucking words. If you go to the Breitbart link, you got the whole thing. You hear Wolf Blitzer here, and it's roughly an 8-minute, it's like an 8-minute interview, okay, as opposed to the, how many minutes did CNN post? CNN posted, out of that 8-minute interview, CNN posted, where the fuck is it? Come on. Posted 3 minutes and 49 seconds. That's what CNN posted. So out of the 8-minute interview, CNN deliberately whittled it down to 3 minutes, which tried to make Joe look, like he was on his best behavior and really sticking it to the man over in Saudi. Nothing could be further from the truth. Watch the entire fucking interview. Blitzer asked him, did Biden ask you to increase oil production with the hope that it would reduce the price of gasoline in the United States? Al-Jubeir answered, not with specificity, because the president knows that the energy issue is supply and demand. It's an issue of balancing markets. Saudi Arabia is committed to balancing the market. The problem of gasoline in the United States, this is, again, the Saudi minister's words, the problem of gasoline in the United States is more a function of the lack of refining capacity in the United States than a shortage of actual crude oil. In other words, he's telling us we got plenty of our own oil, we're just not fucking drilling it. Blitzer asked him, is Saudi ready to increase oil production? And again, in a long roundabout way, they're like, no, we have no intention of fucking picking this up because it's unnecessary. It's an international market. They've got resources of their own. Fucking drill it. Go listen to the interview. It's all right fucking there. Blitzer cut him off to say if Biden pressed him on the issue. Al Jaber answered, no, the president doesn't press us on this issue. The president doesn't press us on this issue. The president is aware that we are maintaining stability in the markets. Wolf, the president did not come here to press Saudi Arabia. So yeah, real fucking hardcore guy there. And then he proceeds to ask him about the Khashoggi thing. And of course, they try to make a big point out of the fucking Khashoggi thing. And he's like, no, basically he asked us about it, and then we moved on. But again, mainstream press is going to do what a ministry of propaganda does. The bullet point that I'm largely getting at here is beyond just the Saudi thing. The entire fucking narrative, all of it, the stage managed theatrical production that has been the Biden show presidency, where we march him out and he stumbles his way through a fucking teleprompter and then shake hands with invisible people and doesn't fucking take any questions from the media. Everyone knows this man is addled. Everyone knows that he is weak. It has just come out that 92% of Democrats, contrary to what Joe was saying, you guys are all the same. Get off my lawn, kid. Contrary to that shit, 92% of Democratic voters want somebody else next time around. Certainly not going to be Kamala. Now we see Mayor Buttplug. We see Gavin Newsom. A lot of people fucking angling because they know what's coming. God, these midterms are going to be a fucking bloodbath, and I can't wait to see it. But the show's falling apart, not just in Saudi. Let me move on to the next bullet point. Hunter Biden laptop shows dozens of meetings with dad and business partners. That's right, guys. The thing that was Russian disinformation, what they tried to sell us before the election, that may have, in fact, orchestrated the loss of the election. They kept it buried. Twitter buried it. Twitter cut off the New York Post for reporting it, saying that they reported Russian disinformation. 27 intelligence officials came out and said that it was Russian disinformation and a smear campaign. Where are those 27 people now? Because it's 100% authenticated and it keeps getting worse by the fucking day. You never know it from watching MSNBC or CNN, but it's out there. It's trickling out not just on internet news sources, but on mainstream sources now. Even CNN's having to dip their toe in the pond. That's a frightening thing. Biden's done. It's all falling apart. Biden insisted that he had never discussed with his son, even though his son, America's first crackhead, he never discussed business dealings with his son. Never discussed it. Nope. Hunter's the smartest man I've ever met. Have you guys been watching? Okay. Do we really even need to go into it? But yeah, that's Hunter. The smartest man Joe's ever met, but who he never talked about with the business dealings, as is coming out, not only documentation, emails, photographs. Yes, he did meet with Hunter and all of the fucking business associates. And had Joe Biden's name not been on this, folks, who the fuck would give a shit about Hunter fucking Biden in and of himself? The crackhead son of a senator. Oh yeah, we went to Hunter for his business acumen, for all of his experience in international banking and the oil and gas industry, like Burisma over in Ukraine. You know, the place that we keep sending billions of dollars to. What information do they have that compromises these people? They've obviously got compromising information on Hunter. The Chinese have it. The Ukrainians have it. Who would have given a fuck about Hunter in and of itself? What did Hunter bring to the table? Oh, wait, I'll get you the inroad with my dad. But they, again, expect us with a straight face to say, no, Joe had no idea what was going on. Now it's all coming out. Emails, photographs. It's all fucking there. The entire goddamn narrative is falling apart. We already saw what happened over in China, but I'm going to play this for you. I want you to listen very closely to this soundbite. This is leaked audio from just days after the 2016 election, before Trump was inaugurated. Now, let's jump in our time machine. Let's jump in the Wayback Machine. Phineas J. Whoopi, you're the greatest. Okay. Yeah, I'm showing my age now. Let's go back to 2016. More to the point, let's go all the way back to 2014, the Maidan revolution in Ukraine when we installed Poroshenko. Poroshenko was still president of the Ukraine at the time of the 2016 election. Biden, who is already on public record for telling the Ukrainians that he would withhold billions of dollars of foreign aid if they did not fire a specific prosecutor who was investigating the corruption at Burisma. Okay, he's already on record with that. We know that after Maidan, Hunter Biden was installed at Burisma almost immediately, making 50,000 a month or more despite having no experience in the oil and gas industry and no foreign experience in Ukraine. That was about Hunter, right? It was his business acumen. It was his love of crack cocaine and his business acumen that sold him. No, it was access to Joe, and we all fucking know it. I don't know why this is so fucking difficult for people to just come out and admit, because literally no one believes that Joe didn't know. But every day the new one comes out because the Joe show is falling apart. This is audio that was leaked, and I want you to listen very, very closely. OAN got their hands on this audio right after the 2016 election. Now, you remember they impeached Trump the second time for a phone call to Zelensky to say, hey, man, I think we need to look into this Burisma thing before Joe Biden was even running, right? I think we need to look into this Burisma thing. I think there's some corruption going on. We need to look into it. Right. They impeached him for that. I want you to listen to this audio. It's about a minute long. Stay with me. If you can't hear it, I'll clear it up for you here in a second. But this is from OAN.
Drive to clean up loose ends. November 16, 2016, 2 weeks after Donald Trump's victory, Joe Biden is on the phone with Poroshenko. His voice tenser now than before.
This is getting very, very close. What I don't want to have happen, I don't want Trump to get into the position where he thinks he's about to buy onto a politics where the financial system is going to collapse and he's going to be looked to pour more money into Ukraine. That's how he'll think about it before he gets sophisticated enough to know the details.
Okay, now keep in mind, this is the same Joe Biden that he had no influence on getting Hunter appointed to the Burisma board. Same guy that said he never talked to Hunter about any of these things, never benefited from any of the fucking transactions, didn't have any business dealings of his own in Ukraine. This is his own voice in November of 2016. And I'm going to, because it's hard to hear, but it's right there. You can find this on OAN. This is getting very, very close to what I don't want to have happen. I don't want Trump to get in a position where he thinks he's about to buy onto a policy where the financial system is going to collapse and he's going to be looked to pour more money into Ukraine. That's how he'll think about it before he gets sophisticated enough to know the detail. Joe Biden is up to his ass in fucking alligators when it comes to corruption in the goddamn Ukraine. And no one can say with a straight face anymore that he was not, that he was unaware of it, that he didn't have the dirty dealings, and that he's not entirely fucking compromised to Zelensky, because once Poroshenko was out, Zelensky's fucking in. And if you think that all the paperwork and all the transactions and the emails and the phone calls and tapes like this aren't out there, you're not fucking paying attention, are you? Ponder this. OAN was able to get their hands on this fucking tape. Do you want to know what the mainstream media and what leftist outlets are doing with that? You want to know the first thing? Dude, you can already guess. What is the first thing the Atlantic had to say about it? Did they question the veracity of the tape? No. Did they question whether it was Biden's voice on the fucking tape? No. They didn't question any of those things. First thing they said was, how did OAN get their hands on this tape? Are they working with the Russians? It's tired, people. It's fucking tired. It's not working anymore. Not with anyone. Not even with mainstream Democrats. You've completely lost control. Yeah, Brett, and that's the thing. I'm not going to get into Pedo Pete right now because it's not something that I can really confirm. Do I believe it? Absolutely. Do I have any doubts about it? None whatsoever. Do I have any doubts that he was showering with his daughter and touching her inappropriately? No, I don't doubt that at all. But again, what does Lonzo say? It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. Right now, I can't prove that, but it's coming. The Pedo Pete stuff, all of the things with regard to the corruption in Ukraine. Now, again, we could make political footballs out of this, but here's where it gets concerning because we're going to end today talking about an atomic anniversary. We are in Ukraine right now. Our money is in Ukraine. We have sent them 60 billion at this point that we know of. It's all been spent, and none of it is accounted for. None. Why? Because Rand Paul wanted there to be accountability. Remember when he caught shit from the mainstream media a while back when everybody was all fired up? We got to stand with Ukraine. Rand Paul's an isolationist. He doesn't stand with Ukraine. That's not what it was at all. Rand Paul said, I want, if there is money that is going to go to these fucking people, when we are literally fighting a proxy war that puts us head to head with the world's only other nuclear superpower, I would at least like there to be every dime of that money accounted for, especially in a country as known corrupt as Ukraine, with as known corrupt a leader as fucking Zelensky. But of course, Eye Patch McCain and the rest of them fucking overrode Rand Paul's ass. He didn't have anything to say about it. We sent him the first fucking 50 billion, and then 5 billion more, and then 1.6 billion more, and then 2.4 billion more here, and a little more, and a little more, and a little more. And Zelensky, his response? You want to talk about a fucking ingrate? He's bitching that we're not sending him more fast enough. Who the fuck are you? You coked up fucking comedian. Who the fuck are you? I'll tell you who he is. He's the guy that's got shit on Biden. He's the guy that's got shit on Hunter. He's the guy that's got shit on Joe. And all of these people so desperate to hang on to the power of the swamp. What do you think Pelosi, and again, this is speculation. Okay, once I cross into the threshold of speculation, I'm going to let y'all know, right? Because I'm not preaching here. What I can confirm is all this money went. What I can confirm is that none of it is fucking accounted for. What I can confirm is that the one fucking senator who said, hey, we should account for it, got bowled the fuck over. I can confirm all of that. But now we're getting into a little bit of speculation. You think Nancy Pelosi doesn't know what they have on Biden? You think Mitch McConnell doesn't know what they have on Biden? They want to keep that money flowing. They want to keep that money flowing big time because guess what happens? Guess what fucking happens? Careful how you say coked up comedian. Okay, G-Dub, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were so sensitive all of a sudden, man. Next time I'll give you a trigger warning. You think Nancy doesn't know? She knows. McConnell knows. They all know that he's fucking compromised. They can insinuate that he's compromised to China. They fucking know that he's compromised in Ukraine. But what happens if that suddenly comes out? What happens if that suddenly comes out that all of the things that are so fucking obvious and have been for, since way before the 2020 election, if it comes out that we are in Ukraine and we are sending billions to Ukraine for a fucking murderous horde of war criminal, child rapist fucking neo-Nazis. I know, I say neo-Nazi like it's a bad thing too, whatever. That we're doing this because they have compromat. They have compromat on the same group of people that spent fucking 4 years and now 6 years telling us that Putin has a PP tape. What is the likelihood that Zelensky has a pedo tape? Because last I checked, Trump wasn't sending foreign aid to Russia. For all the talk about him being Putin's puppet, I didn't see Trump doing any of those things, bowing down, removing sanctions, any of that bullshit. But I can tell you for damn sure he wasn't sending billions of our dollars over there or making it easier for Russia to acquire billions of dollars from any fucking where else. But Zelensky, interesting. Zelensky. Hunter was installed at Burisma. Everyone knows what's on Hunter's laptop. There are implications that there may be some pedo shit involving Joe on Hunter's laptop. He's tied to Hunter. Again, speculation, but don't tell me I'm outside of the ballpark of possibilities here. We'll see. We'll see. All I know is right now the narrative is falling apart and they have lost control of the information. I'll finish this interview on OAN.
In other words, Biden does not want Ukraine asking for more money from Trump.
Biden doesn't want Ukraine asking for more money from Trump.
So would cause Trump to look into the details.
Because asking Trump for more money is going to cause him to look into the details about Burisma. Are you tracking? And eventually he did look into the details about Burisma. And after Poroshenko was out and Zelensky was in, he hit up Zelensky with a phone call where he asked him to look into Burisma. And he was impeached for it. He was impeached for it by the same people who we see traveling over there to meet with Zelensky now. Why does the Speaker of the House need to fly to Ukraine, a war zone which we're told Putin could bomb with nuclear weapons any fucking minute? Why does the Speaker of the House and the Minority Leader of the Senate, why do Mitch McConnell, Pelosi, Graham, any of these people, why are they all flying over to fucking Ukraine? Why? What sense does any of this make? These are the same people that push for impeachment against President Trump over looking into Burisma, and now this comes out. I'll give you what Biden says here. So anything you can do to push the private bank to closure so that the IMF loan comes forward, here we go. Here we go. Let me just run. I'll run it.
Cause Trump to look into the details.
So anything you can do to push the private bank to closure so that the IMF loan comes forward, I would respectfully suggest is critically important to your economic as well as physical security.
Economic and physical security. Ponder that, boys and girls. I'm going to give you the link for this one too, because now I know that I can do it. So we're going to do that. Let me just do this real quick. Hang on, create a banner, click, cut, paste, bam. There's the banner and boom. There's your link. There's your link. Feel free to pause the video later on the replay, go back and look at it, but I'm going to post it there. That was the link, OAN, twitter.com. And you can go and look for yourself. Again, I'm not your fucking guru. I'm just a crane operator with some opinions. That's it. I'm dollar store Alex Jones. Speaking of haters, I forgot all about that guy. Like a dollar store Alex Jones. That is the coolest shit. And we finally get around to doing t-shirts. That's got to be one of them. But it's all falling apart, guys. The narrative is falling apart. The stage management has gone the way of the fucking dinosaur. So sliding into the fucking midterms, we're looking at a bloodbath for the Dems. Now, personally, I think that's going to be glorious. I can hardly fucking wait. But you better believe there are going to be some fucking consequences because these people are not going to go quietly. You remember what Hillary said a long fucking time ago, or at least what she is alleged to have said, that if I go down, half of fucking DC's going with me? Dude, they're all intertwined. I mean, Hillary may be a linchpin, but don't fucking think that if this Zelensky thing blows up in fucking Biden's face, that Pelosi's not going to get yanked into this, that McConnell's not going to get yanked into this. There's a fucking reckoning coming, people. And it doesn't matter which side of the goddamn political fence you're on. I don't care. There is about to be a fucking reckoning. So you would better, by God, have your house in fucking order because it's coming and it's going to be ugly. But yeah, the stage management of the Biden show has fallen to the fucking wayside. Biden show's falling apart. Third and next to the last bullet point, race-based morality is losing steam and good people are pushing back. One story that I didn't have time to get into last week was, and I wanted to badly, because they are criminalizing self-defense. Now, there are obvious examples of this. The Rittenhouse case, where it was, okay, we can dicker about whether or not he should have been there in the first place. But the one thing that you can't argue is that he was attacked by monumental child molesting fucking scumbags, and he fought back and he defended his own fucking life. He crossed state lines, he committed murder, blah, blah. Okay, cool, dude. Have that discussion, please, by all means. Bravo, have that fucking discussion. I'm not too worried about that. But the overall push to criminalize self-defense, that's the fucking scary part. Coming from Texas to Washington, up here in the Northwest, and, Oregon's laws, my understanding is pretty much the fucking same. One thing about Washington and Texas is that they are both mutual combat states, which is odd that Washington would go so far the other way on fucking self-defense. Now, they are both mutual combat states in the sense that you or I at a bar, and we're like, well, man, fuck you, no, fuck you. Why are you staring at my old lady's ass? Step outside, motherfucker. Let's fucking throw dogs. All right, here we go. And we can go out and we beat each other in the face. And as long as nobody pulls a fucking weapon, and as long as it's basically considered even nothing gets excessive, if I'm just beating your fucking ass, hands, feet, knees, elbows, whatever, and I beat you down, once you lose consciousness, if I let up, no harm, no foul. I mean, like if I gouge your fucking eyes out and things like that, then it gets into some legal gray areas. But that's the thing about Washington and Texas. They are both mutual combat states. You could sign a piece of paper, even outside of a sanctioned MMA event. I mean, there was one viral video about the one guy in Seattle that dressed as a superhero. He's since come out as a crackhead and a fucking child molester, and he's in prison now. But at the time, he was wearing a superhero outfit and, scrapping with people downtown. And Seattle cops actually more or less refereed because the guy was talking shit and being belligerent or whatever. And the guy walks up in his superhero outfit and, here I come to save the day. Turns out I'm a pedo. It's fucking gay. But yeah, that came out later. Anyway, yes. So superhero guy scraps with a dude on the street in Seattle, beats the fuck out of him, and literally goes to the cops before the fight starts and says, look, we're a mutual combat state. I need you guys to keep an eye on everything. Nobody's going to use any weapons. It's going to be hands and feet. Okay, whatever. And the cops literally stand by. And as soon as the guy fucking drops, the cops go, okay, cool, that's enough. And that's it. Texas and Washington both have that on the books. Okay. Texas, on the other hand, is also a stand your ground state, meaning that if someone fucks with you in a place where you otherwise have a legal right to be and you feel threatened, you have a right to stand your fucking ground, up to and including deadly force. Washington doesn't have that. Washington, self-defense, there is duty to retreat. There are all sorts of legal considerations up here. Now, again, better to be tried by 12 and carried by 6. If a tweaker approaches me at a fucking gas station, he's waving a blade, I'm lighting him up, he's leaving the gene pool, and that's the fucking end of the day. And I'll be alive to fucking stand trial, particularly if, my fucking loved ones are involved. I'll take that to the fucking wall. I don't care. But there is a push nationwide. Now, we saw what Trudeau did in Canada. No, Canadians, that is not a right that we have to defend our life with firearms. We don't have that right. Now, that would be the model for California. It would be a model for Washington, Oregon, Illinois, every fucking leftist enclave on the planet. The UK, for instance, all of the, now the UK has gone completely batshit with it, but it's that duty to retreat thing. And that's across the board for all fucking citizens. Here's where we run into problems with regard to race-based morality policing. You have leftist DAs in these enclaves like New York City and Chicago and Seattle and Portland and everything else, who, if you are if you're leftist across the board, because that's how it happens. There are like 7 black people in Oregon, and 2 of them are on my job site and they're good people. But no, for Portland and Seattle, it's more of a political thing. If you are a leftist committing acts of violence against good people, the DA will waive it off without charges. Even if you assault a cop, even if you assault a cop with a weapon, the prosecutors just won't fucking prosecute. This is a Soros thing. It's been gone into at length. I don't need to belabor the fucking point. We all know how it's happening. Here's how it manifested in New York City about a week and a half ago. New York bodega workers facing a murder charge after fatally stabbing a man who attacked him. Now, this guy comes into the bodega over a pack of chips. Now, keep in mind, he's wearing a $180 pair of fucking tennis shoes, has a substantial amount of cash in his fucking pocket. His old lady tried to walk out of the store without paying for a bag of chips. Instead of just going in and paying for the fucking bag of chips, he goes in, starts a fucking ruckus, beats the shit out of the guy, comes behind the fucking counter, and proceeds to beat him within an inch of his fucking life. The bodega owner isn't fucking digging this shit, so he pulls a fucking blade and stabs this motherfucker to death. Good on him. No harm, no foul. One more dead scumbag. Wow, I just felt the world get lighter. Where's the problem? Well, here's the fucking problem. In spite of the fact that the guy jumped the counter and fucking physically assaulted the man and beat him within an inch of his life, in spite of the fact that the bitch who fucking stole the bag of chips in the first fucking place pulled out her own blade and stabbed the fucking bodega owner, the DA, the DA's office, the prosecutor in particular in New York City, not only did not charge her with anything, he charged Jose Alba, the bodega worker, with murder for defending himself. This is how it works. Now, obviously, Jose Alba is not a good, upstanding white cracker, but here's what else he is not: black. Okay? Let's just call it what it is. When it is this morality-based policing, right? This sentencing equity thing, this bail reform movement, all of this, where historically oppressed and marginalized groups must now be treated with a view towards equity, meaning, look, let's call it what it is, not just in theory, but as we have seen dozens of times, particularly my guys down in Houston. You know what Kim Ogg has done, turning motherfuckers loose that have literally shot at police officers, turning them loose on PR bonds, even though they're already out on multiple fucking PR bonds for other fucking violent felonies. Why? Because they're black. Historically fucking marginalized, and therefore we give them a PR bond no matter what the fuck they do. Well, Jose Alba's assailant was black. His old lady, also black. You know, the one that stabbed the guy, that stabbed the clerk. But Jose Alba defended himself with a knife, kills this motherfucker, and guess what? On trial for fucking murder. Soros appointed fucking prosecutor. One of those was just actually removed in a recall election in California, of all places. So that gets back to the bullet point. This race-based morality policing, morality sentencing, all of this shit is fading because people are fucking pushing back. They initially gave the guy, they initially had the guy's bond set at several $1 million. They had to bump it down to 50,000 because of public fucking outcry. You see what's going on here? And eventually, because of public outcry, this motherfucker is going to be set free. And it doesn't matter how the media tried to paint up this whole fucking narrative. Well, property is never worth someone's life. Every time I hear one of these fucking Pop-Tart Bow Queen, beady-eyed news whores spew that shit. Full disclosure, guys, and I know it's going to paint me in a bad light, and I don't care. In my heart of hearts and in my mind's eye, I see her going, no amount of property is worth a human life. I want to snatch her up. I want to snatch her up by that fucking Louis Vuitton handbag, smash her in the face 4 or 5 times, take the fucking handbag, her watch, her wallet, and hell, if the dress is expensive, rip that right off her fucking back too, and then have her hand her a handgun. In fact, I'll start the scenario off. Oh, really, honey? You feel that way? Put a .38 revolver, round in the chamber, in her fucking hand. and then snatch her up. Repeat same scenario. Snatch her up by that gold fucking chain, smash her in the face 3 or 4 fucking times, steal that Louis Vuitton handbag, take her fucking wallet, any valuable jewelry she has on. Hell, man, I might be able to sell that dress for fucking $100. I'm gonna snatch that off her back too. See if I walk away from that without a couple of bullet wounds. And you know what? Those bullet wounds I should fully fucking expect, because no matter how much they spew it, when the rubber meets the road, they don't believe that shit. No amount of the property is worth a human life. Oh, I bet you're going to feel different about that when it's your property. And when the guy's taking it away from you through an act of violence, you insipid little fucking cunt. It's all in theory to them. Always in theory. But that's how they push it. The media pushed that narrative, but it didn't work. And there was a public outcry for this man's bail to be lowered. The media carried that in the Rittenhouse case. He's a white supremacist. No basis for that whatsoever. He's a white supremacist and he went into that town to kill black people. All of his victims were white. Well, it doesn't matter. The principle of the thing is that Black Lives Matter and he shot people. Yeah, the people that he shot were attacking. Well, that doesn't matter because no amount of... Okay, right. No amount of property is worth a human life. And everybody shot just happened to be wife-beating and child-molesting scumbags. Let me ask you something. Let's say I was doing comedy and you came to one of my shows, right? And some nutcase with a gun, right? Nutcase gets in there with a gun at one of my comedy shows. Let's say there's 500 people there. 500 people at this fucking comedy show. I know I'm fucking dreaming because I'm not that fucking funny. But at the end of the day, guy walks in with a fucking revolver, fires 6 shots into the crowd, shoots and kills 3 people. And out of those 3 people, 3 out of 500 at random, it turns out that out of those 3, 2 of them are fucking pedos and one of them beats the shit out of his wife. What do you think that says about the rest of my crowd? Right. So anyway, leaving Planet Rittenhouse for a minute. He was righteously acquitted. Good on him. But again, the push is always there. We have to criminalize self-defense. People who defended their stores during the George Floyd riots. Now, the people who were burning shit and shooting cops and murdering people and pulling down statues, well, they're in such social order. It's a righteous uprising in light of the fact of the systemic injustice. But you let a guy step out on his front fucking porch with a shotgun and bleed one of these fuckers out. And suddenly he's a horrible person. He's part of the problem. He's part of the racist, crippling system that's blah, blah. Okay, Ibrahim X. Kendi, none of this shit is working anymore. We're getting pushback in New York City. We're getting pushback in Minneapolis. You know what just happened in Minneapolis, right? Beyond the bodega owner, right? Bodega owner in New York City, you get pushback on that. Rittenhouse was fucking acquitted. Technically, Sundberg. A short while back in Minneapolis, he was on a roof. He was on a roof with a fucking rifle, taking shots at a fucking house. Minneapolis police, according to the report, were originally called to Sundberg's building on the night when a tenant called 911 to report that someone was firing gunshots into her unit, endangering her and her 2 young children. They evacuated the building and engaged in a 6-hour standoff with Sundberg before fucking shooting him. Sundberg is what? Complexion. Come on, guys. You know the answer to this. Sundberg is what? Sundberg is fucking black. Therefore, he was not a murderous scumbag fucking firing random rounds into a fucking building where a woman and her 2 children live. No, sir, indeed. He was an historically oppressed and marginalized, poor, downtrodden fucking minority who was having, according to the actual news report, a mental health crisis. No shit, Sparky. He's on a roof with a fucking rifle shooting into an apartment where there's women and kids and he's having a mental health crisis. Wow, fuck, man, that would not have occurred to me. So this woman, and I feel bad for her. She's a single mother and a gun violence survivor now. Okay? 2 groups of people that the left will insist that they fucking care about. Single mothers, definitely. Gun violence survivors, oh, fucking definitely. The scourge of gun violence cannot be fucking understated, except when it's a black guy having a mental health crisis, you see, because there was a demonstration outside the woman's home where the police shot this fucking murderous piece of shit. Yeah, after a 6-hour standoff and trying to talk him down from his little mental health crisis, they shot him. They didn't have any fucking choice. Personally, I think that was 6 hours longer than that motherfucker needed to live. The minute they showed up on scene and he's dumping rounds into a home where a woman lives with her 2 children as a single mother, they should have lit him up like fucking Christmas. They should have lit him up like fucking Christmas and posted his head on a stick as a warning to fucking anyone else who wants to repeat those fucking actions. You think me harsh? At least I'm honest. But this is what the protesters said. Yeah, see, there was a protest this weekend outside the house where a man having a mental health crisis was killed by racist police. Yeah, a mental health crisis should not be a death sentence, she said. It doesn't give police the right to perform an execution. That was Sundberg's sister. So, adopted from Ethiopia when he was 4, one of 8 children, biological children, several adopted children. Yeah, poor little Dindu. Didn't do nothing. Those of you unaware of the parlance. Yeah, poor little Dindu. They evacuated the building. So, having a mental health crisis should not be a death sentence. It doesn't give the police the right to perform an execution. Okay, well, tell me then, Sparky, in light of your brother's tragic death and everything, does living alone in a random apartment with 2 fucking kids as a single mother, should that be a death sentence? Isn't that part of your fucking narrative? Why we're supposed to be scared of all these things, the school shootings, every other fucking thing? Your words, not ours. Your words. No one should have to live in fear for their life. Going to school shouldn't be a death sentence. Sitting at home shouldn't be a death sentence. Yeah. So when you start dumping rounds into a school, or when you start dumping rounds into a single mother's apartment, I think by your own fucking definition there, it's probably right to light the motherfucker up. Wouldn't you? Oh, but no, because that would require intellectual consistency, wouldn't it? Hashtag intellectual gymnastics. Yeah, always somebody jumping in with that one, right? Yep. Always something. Better background checks for the mentally ill. Oh, okay, here we go. Let me guess. I'm going to hear about gun show loopholes, right? Uvalde cops were even afraid of the AR-15. Yeah, well, the Uvalde cops were fucking cowards. You know who wasn't afraid of the AR-15? Several parents who tried to push past the cops and handle the situation themselves, a number of whom were armed. Cowards are cowards. Got nothing to do with the AR-15. I don't even know who this guy is or how he found the program, but welcome. You guys feel free to light him up, whatever. I got no time. Yep, Uvalde cops were just afraid. Okay, whatever. Have at it, Sparky. I'm not too concerned about it. I'm on a tirade here. You're welcome to start your own show, guys. If you want to light him up in the comments, you guys do your thing. I'm finishing the point as established. So yeah, Dindu across the street. Cops had a 6-hour standoff with the motherfucker. He continued to discharge rounds into the fucking home. They lit him up, smoked him. Problem fucking solved. Only the protesters that showed up. And here's the beauty of it, as always. It's the ones that Brother Malcolm warned you about that showed up for the protest. Wasn't a whole lot of black folks, a bunch of college-educated white liberals in fucking Minneapolis. Same ones that excused the George Floyd riots. Same ones that excused the ones that murdered the cops in the wake of those fucking riots. Same ones that fucking excused the riots in Kenosha. White, college-educated liberals. Okay? That's who showed up for the fucking protest. Only what they weren't counting on, and here's how fucking twisted it's gotten. Here's how fucking sick this has gotten, boys and girls. There are GoFundMe's right now. Okay. Getting back to the bodega worker, right. The bodega worker had a GoFundMe for his legal defense. Do you know what GoFundMe did to his account? They pulled it down. They pulled it down, refunded everybody's money. Why? Because he had been accused of a violent felony. He'd been accused of a violent felony and was still alive. Little Dindu here, he was accused of a violent felony and he's dead. GoFundMe took down the page for the bodega worker because he'd been accused of a violent felony. Right now, as it stands, as of 6 hours ago, technically the Dindu in question, 14 grand on his GoFundMe, which is still active, has not been taken down. You see, he was accused of a violent felony, but he's dead. So GoFundMe leaves his up. Honoring Telke and funeral expenses as of 6 hours ago was at $14,417. The woman whose apartment he was firing into, the single mother with the two fucking children, her GoFundMe right now has $1,300. How fucking skewed are we as a culture that we are deifying predatory miscreant scumbags and legitimately criminalizing innocent victims? Here's what they hadn't counted on, though. The mother in question. And the video, you can find this on Twitter. I could post another goddamn. I will post this. We're going to give you another link here. We're going to create another banner on the fly because fuck it. It's a new feature. I figured out how to work now, and it's interesting, so I'm going to keep doing it. Fuck it. Here we go. Here's the link. Here is the Twitter link to the actual video that I am about to show over here, and you're going to hear the audio from it. The mother of the two kids, the single mother of the two kids, they're all outside of this apartment building on Saturday. So Techley Sundberg, they're having the big protest movement, and it's all fucking college educated white people. There are a few, token people of color, but it's all primarily college educated white folk because it's Minneapolis. Again, there are about as many black folks. There's more because of the Somali immigrant community, but it's another one of those Portland things that's overwhelmingly fucking white. So these are college educated white folks at the fucking protest, but the mother came outside and, well, she had a little something to say about it.
Items that you guys are celebrating his life.
It was a terror. I'm sure it was a terror.
You're alive.
Shut up.
Let it go.
We're not trying to.
Grief in silence. This is not okay. This is not a George Floyd situation. George Floyd was unarmed. He was unarmed.
You're alive. Sorry.
This is not okay. My kids have to deal with this and probably have a mental illness now because they almost lost their life. There's bullet holes in my kitchen because they sat in the fucking hallway watching my move. I wish it never happened either. That I don't have a place to call home. I can't do that.
She's obviously going through a moment.
This is not okay.
That was the mother. Who was having bullet holes put through her fucking walls. Yeah, you heard it correct, Ryan. You heard it correct. Are you alive? Shut up. Yeah, you absolutely heard that right. They were screaming at this woman. This is a woman who was having bullet holes put through her fucking home while being a single mother alone with her two fucking kids. And she's out there being shamed by college-educated white fucking liberals. So devoted are they to the narrative. Poor little Dindu. Little Dindu is dead, and I couldn't be happier. These people protesting, yes, it is their right to fucking peacefully protest, but I think it speaks volumes. That the overwhelming public sentiment is fucking done with that. That this mother came out and pushed fucking back. Good on her. There should have been at least a dozen counter protesters in front of that fucking apartment building. Hopefully, next time a demonstration comes around, there will be a presence out there to make this woman feel fucking safe. It's got nothing to do with the goddamn gun. It's got to do with the fucking intent. If you are going to lament fucking gun violence, if you're going to lament people living in fear for fucking gun violence, then you don't get to pick and choose how that gun violence gets dealt with when they're putting rounds through an innocent person's fucking wall. They send the cops out. Cops are not fucking social workers. They're going to light your ass up. Good. Again, one more dead scumbag. I just felt the fucking world get lighter. The sentiment is changing. They are criticizing everything about the way that it is handled. And suddenly Colonel Jessup from A Few Good Men becomes my fucking spirit animal. You live under the protection which I provide and then have the audacity to question the manner in which I provide it? Cool. Techley Sundberg is fucking dead. Good. Fuck him. Fuck his grieving family, and fuck every college-educated white liberal out there trying to make it look like the injustice was to Techley fucking Sundberg's din-do-nothing ass and not to the mother trapped in her fucking house. She's got bullet holes in her window to this fucking day, and they're telling her, you're alive, shut up. This is the enemy, people. Just like Brother Malcolm said to the black folks, about time white folk fucking stepped up and acknowledged this. The real fucking enemy is the college-educated white liberal. The real fucking enemy is the college-educated leftist across the fucking board. They are making heroes out of scumbags. They are deifying miscreant pieces of shit. At some point, good people have had enough. Defund the police? Okay, cool. Tie the fucking police's hands? Okay, cool. And eventually you wind up with mothers, single mothers like this with their kids in the fucking house. They have nowhere else to turn. I'm going to tell you something. I'd feel the same way about it if an armed civilian would have done this, motherfucker. I would have felt the same way about it if a fucking late night sanitation worker would have hopped off the back of his garbage truck, walked up on that roof with a fucking 38 and put a bullet through the roof of this fucker's mouth. Eventually, there has to be a line. I don't care what happened in your background. I don't care what brought you to this moment. I don't care about the historical injustice perpetrated on your people by the systemic. Okay, fine. Bore me to fucking tears. That doesn't carry any weight anymore either. Decent thinking people have fucking had enough. If that makes us racist, I think a lot of people don't even mind wearing that banner anymore. If that makes us hateful, people definitely don't mind wearing that banner anymore. If thinking this way makes one an extremist, fuck, you've already hung that label on us. If we are the blue-eyed oppressors, well, you hung it on me, Sparky. Looks like I'm going to wear it. We will not be held hostage by guilt anymore. Good, free-thinking, hard-working, God-fearing, if that's your thing, non-religious, whatever, good and decent people have fucking had enough. The greatest thing to come out of the malaise and the victimizer deification of the 1970s, the runaway crime, the horror. Look at the cultural zeitgeist back then. Look at the films that were coming out. Films like Death Wish, films like Dirty Harry that came out. Why did those films become classics? Because they spoke to people. People were living vicariously through these fictional characters because they were looking at a fucking world that had goddamn run amok, and they wished that somebody, somewhere, the cops had their hands tied. They couldn't fucking deal with it. They wanted someone, somewhere, to provide some fucking salvation. The greatest thing to come out of the downturn of the fucking 70s was the backlash in the fucking 80s. I don't deify fucking Ronald Reagan, but there is not one of you with a shred of honesty that can say that that rising tide didn't lift all boats. There is not one of you who can say that his hard ass in the face of fucking communist onslaughts in our own fucking backyard did not stay the hand of leftist dictatorships. There is not one of you with a shred of fucking honesty. Yes, he signed the 1986 machine gun ban, import ban, all of these things. He was not a fucking saint. He was not a 100%er. We cannot afford that level of moral puritanism anymore as conservatives. We got to take the wins we can fucking get them. And Reagan gave us a lot of fucking wins. Law and order got fucking restored. Communists got pushed out of our fucking backyards. Leftists with fucking Che Guevara flags. You know, the media could fucking flap their gums all they wanted, but at some point it became so fucking overwhelming that they could not stem the tide anymore. And people had to give credit where credit is due. In the same way that we are running into the fawning faithful in the media trying to run cover for this fucking cadaver staggering around the Oval Office right now, at some point it becomes so onerous, so overwhelming that no amount of propaganda can cover it up anymore. We had to go through a Carter to get to a Reagan. We're going to have to weather this, and we will. We've weathered worse as a nation before. We are going to have to weather the woke left. We are going to have to weather the Biden regime, the economic downturns, all the horrible shit, the censorship, the wannabe fucking dictatorship, the tyranny that's coming our way. We're going to weather all that because we've weathered that worse before. And what we get on the far end of that is going to be something fucking glorious. A lot of you guys are going to go, well, yeah, man, because Trump's coming back. Maybe. Okay. I'd settle for a DeSantis. I'd settle for a Rand Paul. I'd settle for anyone who was a devout constitutionalist who believed in the righteousness of a work ethic, who believed in the inalienable birthright to defend one's own life. But that is the greatest thing about what we are living through now, is that the masks are off. We don't have to speculate. What would it have been like if we implemented this policy? What would it have been like if we fucking deified scumbags? What would it be like if we threw more money at this problem or that problem? We're getting to see leftist policies play out in real time. It is an abject and fast-moving disaster that has become undeniable at this point. So I'm glad that we're getting to live through it. I really am. For all of the bullshit, for all the tooth grinding, for everything else, I'm glad that we're getting to live through it. Because it's outlining what we have to do. It's outlining what is no longer the right move, the right political push. It is highlighting what is rapidly becoming, and I say this without a shred of hyperbole, no less than a moral fucking imperative. You guys know I'm a Cold War history buff. You guys know I'm a student, a fan, a fascinated little salivating fanboy of all things atomic. This week, 77th anniversary of the Trinity test. What was the Trinity test? The Trinity test was the detonation of the world's first atomic bomb. It took place on the Jornada del Muerto, what is now the White Sands Missile Range. White Sands, I think is going to be, I think Milley wants it renamed Racist Dirt Missile Range. Yeah, White Sands. So White Sands Missile Range. Out there on Jornada del Muerto. 5:45 in the morning, August 16th, 1945. World's first atomic bomb. The tool-wielding apes that we are, with our opposable digits and our big fucking brains, figured out how to split the atom. We unleashed and released the fundamental energy of the universe. We gave birth to a little baby son just for a minute. There are two takeaways. You remember, guys, when I talked about speculation and what scientists and experts and doctors are capable of. We open with that, and I'm going to close with this. We're going to bring it all full circle with regard to Trinity. Here are the two takeaways. The scientists for the Manhattan Project, all of them, Oppenheimer included, at the time, they were still in uncharted territory. They were rolling the dice, same way we're doing now, say with CERN, Superconducting Super Collider Project, any of that stuff. They made a list of remote possibilities, but still possibilities that they could not rule out. Some of the things on that list that they could not rule out: one, chain reaction that would peel the crust off the earth, killing everyone. Two, chain reaction that would literally burn off the atmosphere, killing everyone. Third, radiation reaching the ionosphere, circling the fucking globe, irradiating the planet beyond the point that it could sustain life. These were just three of several scenarios that the Manhattan Project scientists could not rule out. They didn't think it was likely. They didn't think it was probably not going to happen, but they couldn't rule it out. And knowing that, they said, fuck it, roll the dice, pop that motherfucker. And so they did. Detonated the world's first atomic bomb, gave us, as Americans, exclusivity. Wouldn't last but 5 years, but we had exclusivity on the biggest stick on the fucking playground. But it took us into an era where our consciousness has not evolved to meet the challenges of the power that we had unleashed. In other words, we had given ourselves the power to physically remove ourselves from the entire equation, to bring on our own self-inflicted annihilation. At the same time, we had not evolved a consciousness on a level to know how to rein that in. And that made those tool-wielding apes on the third rock some very dangerous monkeys. And that specter has hung over our head like a sword of Damocles for 77 fucking years now. Thankfully, only used twice on the battlefield. Ryan, I know where you're going. Don't. Thankfully, only used twice on the battlefield. But now, with the shit going on in the Ukraine, this scared little Reagan era kid that got into prepping and survivalism because of Mel Tappan and because of the fears of fucking nuclear Armageddon in my fucking high school days in the Reagan era. I'm getting to revisit all that shit. Getting to revisit every fucking bit of it. Because right now it's real again. It's right fucking there. Likely? No. Possible? Just like the scientists at Trinity said, roll the fucking dice. That's takeaway number one. When it comes down to scientists, they will always go against erring on the side of fucking caution. For the sake of science, for the sake of research, they will roll the fucking dice. If that is scientists and physicists at CERN saying, yeah, we could rip a hole in the universe and create a fucking black hole, but go ahead, roll it. If that's physicians at Pfizer saying, yeah, this thing might alter DNA, this thing might create this, might create that, but don't fucking roll it. So always be careful when you're talking about trust the scientists and trust the fucking experts. They will always be willing to roll the dice. But the bigger takeaway is this, closing and specifically with what I talked about in the back half of the fucking program. There was a famous quote from Oppy, J. Robert Oppenheimer, the head scientist on the Manhattan Project. If you guys have ever seen, if you haven't seen the movie Fat Man and Little Boy, you should. Dwight Schultz does a phenomenal job as Oppenheimer. And I think Paul Newman, even though he wasn't quite fat enough for the role, did a hell of a job as General Leslie Groves, if you're familiar with the actual history of the project. They took some creative license. They talk about the Demon Corps. You know, Ryan, remind me, Demon Corps. We need to do a rabbit hole in the Demon Corps. They took some liberties with that, with the Demon Corps and the people that died stuff. Good little flick, worth checking out. Famous soundbite from Oppenheimer right after the detonation. He was talking about the scientists that surrounded him. He said some people laughed, some people cried, most people were silent. He said, I was reminded of the Hindu scripture from the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is trying to convince the prince to do his duty. And he takes on his many-armed form to impress him. And he says, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Now that passage by itself is very fucking profound. I mean, when you just think about the picture that fucking paints. A lot of people think it was Oppenheimer seeing himself momentarily as that God who would, assume that many-armed form. I am become death. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. But if you actually read the fucking Bhagavad Gita, right, start getting into it. They don't pass a whole lot of moral judgments on death. This actual story, okay, the actual story where Vishnu is trying to convince the prince, Arjuna. Vishnu's trying to convince Arjuna to do his duty. And what his duty is at that point is to fight, to lead men into war. And Arjuna is reluctant. He is reluctant. So Vishnu shows himself and takes on that form, and he says, boom, and he makes the big dramatic flourish and spectacle. He takes on that majestic fucking form. He says, now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. This is what, in context, and again, I'm just a crane operator with some opinions, my analysis of what he was really trying to say to the prince at that moment. He was trying to convince the prince to do his duty. And the prince was reluctant. Why? Because the prince, Arjuna, he's fucking human. He's human. He's reluctant to wade in. He's reluctant to do what must be done because people will die. People will get hurt. There will be suffering as a result of his actions. And what Vishnu, by taking on this form and saying, I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. The Bhagavad Gita isn't, they are more along the term that death is an illusion, but they certainly don't make any moral judgments about it. And why does Vishnu say this? He says this to Arjuna to convince him to do his duty. What he is saying to the prince is that this is your duty. This is your calling. Whatever happens after this is fate. Whatever happens after this is fate. You have a duty and a calling. You are the prince, and it is your duty to fight. In the same way that Oppenheimer didn't have any grandiose fucking notions. He wasn't on a moral crusade. He wasn't particularly anti-Nazi, even if all of the fucking scientists he was surrounded with were fucking Jews. He wasn't particularly anti-fascist. He did have, in fact, his communist leanings, as came out later. But again, it's getting off the larger point. He felt, as a citizen of the United States, as a member of the scientific community, that creating this thing that he had been commissioned to create at the behest of General Groves and the War Department. They didn't make any pretense about Defense Department at the time. It was the War Department. He was doing his duty. The consequences at that point were out of his hands. He had done his duty. He had created what he needed to create. And whatever came after that was fate. Whatever came after that was fate. He was a servant of fate. He was a servant of that many-armed God who had become death, the destroyer of worlds. Oppenheimer was just a functionary. Oppenheimer was a servant of history and fate. And he stepped up and he did his duty. And he unleashed the potential and the actuality, in fact, not long after, asked the residents of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, asked the downwinders, 10,000 Navajo with cancer, the fucking test in the Nevada desert, asked the islanders from Bikini Atoll, Kwajalein, got displaced by our atmospheric test in the ocean. Oppenheimer unleashed all of that, but none of that was on Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was doing his duty. Everything past that was the work of that many-armed God back behind him, who had become death, the destroyer of worlds. Going forward, many of us, God forbid, I hope that the tide turns more quickly and more solidly in our favor without the shedding of blood, without the historical catastrophes, without any of those things. But many of us going forward are going to be asked to do things that would not otherwise be in our moral character. I don't cultivate friendships with people who are born killers, as it were. The people that I am around, the people that are in my circle, many of you are here, you're in the comments right now. We have all been around violence. We have seen it. We know what it looks like up close. We know what an abdominal wound smells like up close. Our senses have processed the result of violence. And subsequent to that, it is the last thing in the world that any of us want or crave or desire on any kind of level. And anyone who does is a twisted little unit. But the flip side of that is we will not shun it, we will not avoid it, and we will not run from it. And God help you if you bring us to it. We may find ourselves in the position of a low-rent dollar store Oppenheimer, since I'm dollar store Alex Jones, for the sake of the analogy. We may find ourselves in a position on a much lower level that Oppenheimer found himself in on that August day in the New Mexico desert. But nonetheless, because the downrange consequences will not be that severe. But on a personal level, what it may cost us, what it may cost people that are close to us, what it may cost our loved ones, what it may cost our country, still some heavy shit to deal with. We need to remember that passage from the Bhagavad Gita in those moments. We need to remember that passage. And remember that when we step up, we are assuming, reluctantly as it may be, we are assuming what we find to be our moral responsibility. Vishnu has stepped before us, urging us to do our duty, and we have responded against everything in us, against everything that we desire, against everything that we would want for the world, that we want for our families, that we want for our children, that we want for the country, that we want for our species. In the final analysis, we do not want this violence, but we will not shrink from it. We will not shirk our duty. We will not abdicate our responsibility to do our duty as Arjuna did, the prince. And we will step from that shadow when we hear those guiding words. And God help you if you are on the receiving end of it. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Rue the day if it ever come. But God's curse us if we shirk from it. It is our moral duty to rise to the challenge and do what must be done. Pray that cooler heads prevail. Pray that cooler heads will pull the other side back from the brink. Now it's in the hands of fate. Either way, the ones here that I embrace, we will be there to rise to the challenge. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Appreciate you guys being here. Don't know what's going on over here in the comments. Really don't care. Because I'm sure I'll catch up. I'm sure I'll see it on the replay. Apparently we've got a troll over there waiting under a bridge for 3 billy goats. Hey, more power to him, man. You know, it is what it is. Anyway, I love you guys. I appreciate you being here, making me feel like a lot less like a lone voice in the wilderness week after week. If you guys want to throw me a little something, if anything I did helped you out, new information, changed your worldview, whatever, you want to throw me a little bit of coin, I'd love that. I'm on Facebook Pay, I'm on PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, all that good shit. But mostly as usual, it's a labor of love, man. Just trying to bring the wisdom a little bit, man. Maybe open your eyes to some things you hadn't thought of before. So that's cool. Besides, in a Biden economy, not everybody can afford to kick down some coin. But I'll tell you what you can do for me, man. Spread the word about Dollar Store Alex Jones. I'm sorry, that never gets old. Spread the word about Dollar Store Alex Jones. Let everybody know, man. Hey, man, there's this fat, toothless cripple. That rants and raves for a couple of hours every Sunday. He's a light mind. He's a kindred spirit. You guys might dig it. Check out the program, man. Spread it on your own. Repost it on your Facebook, Twitter, whatever you got going on. Spread the word, man. More the merrier. Get everybody on board. Hopefully everything's cool. And not everybody's cup of tea. Doesn't faint me one way or the other, man. But we're gonna reach the ones that we can. Not a big deal. Here's what you can do for me, though. Above beyond everything else. More important than anything else as it rolls. Got to follow the directives, guys. You guys know the directives. You've been around long enough. You know how this rolls, bro. You know how it rolls. They will try to bury you with the noise, man. The signal-to-noise ratio is all fucked up. You can fuck around with Kardashians and every other fucking distraction. That's just noise. You got to get through to the signal. Be the signal that breaks through the noise. They'll try to crush you, demoralize, dehumanize, crush your spirit with the darkness. Try to pull you into their darkness. Fuck their darkness, man. You got to be that light that breaks through the darkness. Signal that breaks through the noise, light that breaks through the darkness, and above beyond anything else. And this is the iron rule. You guys already know this was the iron fucking rule. You have got to be that strength. They will try to lull you into their weakness, their emptiness, their vapidness, their lack of this, their lack of that. Oh, boo fucking who. Products of their own fucking decisions. They will all try to bury you with that. The ones that are higher convince you that you're not worthy. It doesn't matter. They will try to bury you with all this shit, but you have got to be above and beyond anything else. That strength. You got to be that strength when they try to bury you with weakness. You have got to be that fucking strength in a world full of weakness. Because without that strength, none of the other shit matters. None of it. Don't let them break you down, man. Keep your head up, chin down, knuckles up, moving forward. I love you guys. Appreciate you being here. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. I'm out of here, guys. Thanks again. Love y'all. See you next Sunday. Peace. Later. Give me a call here in a minute, Ryan.